Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's the greatest cash prize of the Great British Giveaway so far. A simply stunning £85,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like, making 2026 your greatest year to date. That could get you that brand new car, extend and improve your home, take you away on that bucket list holiday, or just give you some peace of mind over the coming months. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock, only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
We love Great Britain. We love its history, its culture and its tradition, and that's why we're so proud to be part of GB News.
You look genuinely emotional. Oh, come here.
GB News does pay attention to those who are ignored by the mainstream media. The majority of this country whose forefathers fought and died to maintain liberty, to fight for freedom of speech.
The rule of law, the rights of property and democracy. This is the heritage that our country should be so proud of.
Which of course includes our Christian heritage. There's been a huge resurgence in the number of people going to church. Perhaps they're not finding what they're looking for, and they're looking for something a bit deeper, a bit more truthful, a bit more akin to Britain's Christian heritage.
That's right, get ready, because the most exciting night in general election history starts now!
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 12 o'clock on Thursday, the 18th of December. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Dawn Neeson.
Now, Britain is facing an £8 billion plus bill after the Prime Minister agreed a deal to rejoin the EU's student Erasmus scheme, which critics are calling inflated. Yes, this is the real cost. Are we now at the mercy of Brussels?
There has never been a proper focus on prevention. This isn't just about how we make it so that victims have a better service. This is also about how we prevent that violence from being able to happen in the first place.
And young boys will be sent to misogyny lessons at school as the government launches a crackdown on violence against women and girls. But is this really necessary?
And a major government review finds British farmers are bewildered and scared for the future amid major concerns over the tractor tax. We could have told you that.
And Christians have accused a university of discriminating against them after they allowed a nativity play called A Gay in a Manger to go ahead. But are they right to be outraged, or is it a bit of fun?
Some breaking financial news for you now. The Bank of England has just announced their interest rate decision. Yes, rates are to be reduced from 4% to 3.75%. That means borrowing costs are going down to the lowest rate since the beginning of February 2023. Good news for anyone with a mortgage, less good news for the savers amongst us.
Exactly, yeah. You don't want to have savings at the moment because you're not going to get any return on it whatsoever. So we will be explaining exactly what this means, how excited or otherwise we should be, what it means to the pounds left in your pocket. If you've got any left, it might be pennies
pounds
by this
left
stage.
in your pocket. That's a new spin on the pound in your pocket, isn't it? But I mean, one of the reasons why the bank has likely cut this rate, supposed to get the economy going again, even though our inflation is higher than we'd like it to be, well, frankly, it's because the growth is so low.
Do you think, I mean, I might be a little bit cynical here, but do you think they're just thinking we'll throw them a few crumbs and then we'll get away with a lot worse? I think they think we're stupid.
It's just so difficult because normally what you want to do, if you have high inflation, you want higher interest rates to bring that down. If you have low growth, you want lower interest rates to bring the growth up. The trouble is, we've got the worst of both worlds. We've got high inflation and low to no growth. So you've got to risk either side of this equation.
Perish the thought. And let us know what you think. It's very easy to get involved in the conversations we're having about everything, whether you're getting interested in interest rates, see what I did there, or anything else. I mean, we are nearly on Christmas Day now as well, so we are talking about some rather bonkers Christmas stories, to be honest with you. In any case, at gbnews.com/yoursay, join in our conversation.
Absolutely. You can do that also by scanning that little QR code just over there by Dawn.
See, I want to point that way, but it's there.
No, it's actually over there.
I know, it's that one there.
It's like when you're steering a ship, you've got to point the other way.
I don't steer ships that often, to be honest with you. No. Should we get some sense from San Francisco?
Why don't we do that? Here are your headlines.
Very good afternoon to you, Tom. Dawn, thank you very much. 4 minutes past 12, while teachers will be trained to spot the early signs of misogyny under a £20 million government plan aimed at halving violence against women and girls within the next decade. Those proposals are set to be unveiled shortly in the House of Commons, with Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips set to update MPs on how the government plans to intervene earlier before harm escalates. The strategy focuses on the prevention of radicalisation of young men, with lessons on consent, online harms, healthy relationships and positive role models. High-risk pupils will also be referred for extra support, including behavioural courses. And a new helpline will be launched for teenagers experiencing abuse. Well, ahead of her statement in the Commons, Jess Phillips spoke to us here on GB News and said the UK is already leading the way with online safety.
We need to make sure that the government is providing context for young boys in schools so that when they hear horrible, violent, misogynistic things, that we can make sure that that doesn't lead young men to a life of criminality.
In Australia, the Prime Minister has said new hate speech laws are coming after Sunday's deadly shooting at a Jewish festival in Bondi Beach. 15 people were killed when 2 gunmen opened fire during a Hanukkah event, prompting Anthony Albanese to promise tougher penalties for those spreading hate and radicalisation. The reforms include new visa powers, harsher sentencing for online abuse and a federal offence for aggravated hate speech. Mr Albanese has admitted that more could have been done to counter anti-Semitism in the country, saying his responsibility is now to unite the nation, not deepen division. Well, in a British exclusive, Victoria Tepliski, the daughter of Holocaust survivor wounded in the attack, told us authorities have failed to do enough to confront anti-Semitism.
The Holocaust didn't happen overnight. The Holocaust started by propaganda and lies about the Jews. And we know that's happened. We know that's happened in the schools in the UK, you know, throughout America, in Australia. You can see that the youth have been brainwashed.
Well, more on that breaking news that we just heard from Tom and Dawn in the last few minutes. The Bank of England confirming they are cutting interest rates to the lowest level in nearly 3 years. The base rate's been reduced to 3.75%. That is falling below 4% for the first time since January 2023. The move follows lower than expected inflation, slower wage growth and signs that the economy is cooling. It is good news for borrowers with cheaper mortgages and loans, but savers are likely to see their returns fall. In other news this hour, hospitals in England are on high alert after new figures showed flu cases have hit record levels. That's as resident doctors continue their 5-day strike action. More than 3,000 patients were in hospital with flu just last week, the highest ever for this time of year. The North West, though, has seen a small fall in admissions, but NHS leaders warn pressure remains intense, with one senior doctor saying hospitals are nowhere near out of the woods. The farming sector is being left bewildered and frightened by government policy, according to a new review commissioned by ministers. The report, led by former NFU President Baroness Minette Batters, calls for a new deal for profitable farming, warning that costs are rising while weather conditions become more extreme. Although inheritance tax changes weren't formally within the review's scope, farmers did raise them as the single biggest threat to viability. The report also highlights deep concern over changes to post-Brexit farming payments, with some questioning whether their businesses can even survive at all. And the Prince and Princess of Wales have released a new family photograph for their Christmas card this year. Shared on Kensington Palace's social media, the image shows William and Catherine sitting on the grass with George, Charlotte and Louis. It was taken in Norfolk in April by photographer Josh Shiner. And the message with that photo simply reads, wishing everyone a happy Christmas. Those are the midday headlines. Next, a look at the markets.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GBNews financial report.
8 minutes past 12, here are the markets for you. The pound will buy you $1.3354 and 1.1390 euros. The price of gold, £3,241, 36 pence per ounce. And the FTSE 100 is at 9,797 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GBNews financial report.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 8 minutes past midday, and as we've been discussing, the Bank of England has cut interest rates for the first time in months, down from 4% to 3.75%.
This comes as households face rising unemployment and declining inflation, taking borrowing costs down to the lowest level since January 2023.
But is this good news or a sign of desperation from the bank? Well, joining us now is City Editor at City AM, Simon Hunt. Simon, a lot of people will be thinking, good news, the rates are coming down, although the underlying economics of it might not be quite so rosy.
Well, exactly. I mean, if you're a borrower, this is good news for you because it means your costs of borrowing have come down a bit. The flip side of that, though, is that the reason the bank has decided to cut rates today isn't necessarily for particularly good reasons as far as the economy is concerned. It was quite a narrow vote. It was a 5-4 vote among the 9 members of the Monetary Policy Committee on the Bank of England. And all the people who voted in favour of a cut talked about a downturn in the British economy. They talked about rising unemployment, a lack of wage growth, and that contributing to an expected fall in inflation over the coming year.
How much difference will it really make to our viewers and listeners now? Obviously, Christmas is around the corner. We're all feeling the pinch. How much difference is this actually going to make?
I think for the average consumer, they won't feel very much. I mean, if you're a mortgage holder on a variable rate, though, you'll see a small reduction in your monthly costs. But of course, lots of people are on fixed rates, so that won't impact them. It's certainly, there's a consensus in the city now that we're reaching the end of the Bank of England's rate cut cycle. There might be 1 or 2 more cuts next year, but that's pretty much it. So the costs of borrowing now are reaching what could be the lowest that they will go.
That's concerning, given that at the time of the last general election, the economists expected rate cuts to come thicker and faster than they ended up coming. I mean, we were expecting to see rates go far lower than this, and this could be the best that we get.
Absolutely, and certainly if you compare the UK's interest rate to the much lower ones you see by the European Central Bank, it does still seem pretty high. And of course, you know, during the 2010s, we had historically low interest rates that a lot of people got quite used to. But it seems as though the consensus now is that 3% or thereabouts is what we're going to have to get used to in the medium to long term in the UK.
And of course, Simon, it's not good news for the few of us that still have any savings left.
Yes, yeah, of course, you can expect to get some kind of alert from your bank probably in the next few days saying, we're actually cutting the return that you'll get on your savings. So bad news for savers, certainly.
Now, we mentioned a bit about the wider economy. I mean, unemployment has gone up. The last numbers we had for growth weren't growth at all. They were whatever the opposite of growth is. Negative growth, shrinkage, that's the word I was looking for. Shrinking. We've got a shrinking economy according to the last set of figures. But at the same time as having all of these negative indicators, inflation is well above target. I mean, is this the sort of stagflation of the 1970s, or is that over-egging it?
It's a pretty bleak economic picture. I mean, certainly we've seen a slowdown in growth over the course of this year. We're not quite in negative territory to the extent that we'd meet the technical definition of a recession, but it's pretty clear that the picture isn't a very healthy one. On the one hand, we've got rising costs for businesses in the form of rising taxes over the past year, hikes to minimum wages, but at the same time, that has sparked a slowdown in hiring, a rise in unemployment. Which means that for the average Brit, the circumstances they face are not very rosy.
Simon, as you said, you know, the Bank of England, they operate independently of the government. How have the markets reacted to this?
Well, it's probably fair to say this rate cut was pretty well priced in by the markets. I think there was virtually a 90% consensus among markets that this was going to happen. It does mean, as I say, that the chances of more cuts in the future has gone down. Markets are predicting perhaps one, maybe two cuts in the future. And indeed, the fact that today's vote was so narrow, it was only a 5-4 vote in favour of a cut, means that almost certainly at the next meeting of the Bank of England, we can't expect another cut.
OK. Well, Simon Hunt, City Editor at City AM, thanks indeed for talking us through that decision. Well, from the City of London, why don't we turn to somewhere
I'm going to go to the pub.
Earthy?
Let's go to the pub, shall we? Yeah, because that's where our national reporter Will Godley is, at a pub in East Sussex, no less. Will.
Yeah, good afternoon, Dawn, Tom, to both of you. Where people now trickling into the pub, it's just opened. The lunchtime rush is beginning. No talk, though, of interest rates here. Will it have an impact on pubs? Well, potentially not. Consumers will feel a little bit better well off after this cut to interest rates, particularly if they're on a tracker mortgage. Some 500,000 households are in the UK, and every single month they will pay £29 less on their mortgage repayments, or about maybe, 5 or 6 pints is that? So potentially some good news for pubs as well. Mike Edwards joins me now, the co-owner here at the New Inn. Do you reckon you're going to feel any different economically after this interest rate cut?
I'd be very surprised if they buy 5 or 6 pints instead of other things in life, the way the economy is going at the moment. But I think this cut in interest rate is fine for the really big business who borrow lots and lots of money. But the majority of people have mortgages, fixed terms. The majority of small businesses, not us, but others, will have business loans, fixed interest rates, fixed repayments. It's going to make no difference whatsoever. All it can do is just try and improve and add to a feel-good factor, which is totally non-existent at the moment. Everybody I talk to is down in the dumps about the future.
And a large part of that, of course, is down to the cost of living at the moment. Everybody's feeling the pinch. Pubs are as well, particularly after a number of other changes made in previous budgets about the future of pubs. What kind of an impact is that going to have? And is this cut announced today to interest rates going to do anything to help you out?
I don't think it'll do anything at all, quite honestly, Will. The fact of life is hospitality units, pubs, have been absolutely hammered by this Labour government. And there doesn't seem to be much of a way forward. And I look at it, I was reading the other day that a major pub-owning chain had just announced that it was going to sell 1,000 of its pubs. That's its core business. You know, how many other businesses go out and sell or give away their core business? They must have no faith in the future for the next few years to be undertaking that task.
So what's something that could help the pub industry over the next few months?
First of all, a drastic cut in national insurance rates. I am passionate about young people and wanting to see them being employed. I have no doubt that the huge increase in young people and unemployment rates is down to the rise in national insurance costs on big business. And in addition to that, the change to the way the national wage, minimum wage, has been brought in, particularly for young people. There's no reason for employers to employ them anymore now, and therefore train them and educate them.
OK, well, Mike Edwards, thanks for joining us on GB News, reacting to that breaking news this hour that the Bank of England have cut its base rate, interest rate, to 3.75%. Rachel Reeves, of course, reacting to that in the last few minutes, said that this is the fastest pace of cuts in 17 years. Good news for families with mortgages and businesses with loans. She's, though, acknowledged there's more to do, saying that that they are freezing rail fares and prescription charges as well, and cutting £150 off the average energy bills next year as the Bank of England announced this interest rate cut.
OK, Will Godley, thanks very much for bringing us that. Of course, the Chancellor well knows it's very easy to have the fastest rate of cuts in 15 years, because 15 years ago the rates were done well near zero.
Well, this is the thing. They're jumping all over it like it's the best thing since sliced bread, but not a single person that's messaged in or is on social media is saying they're so thrilled with this. It's fantastic. And, just Rachel Reeves listened to the interviews with people who are running pubs and I
just love the idea that Rachel was sitting there and thinking, you know what, under George Osborne, the rates could have got, what were they, 0.5%?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we could have -4 from 0.5%. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, statistics, do anything you want with those ones. OK. Should we go to Downing Street now?
Let's do that.
Yeah, shall we? Because that's where GB News political editor Christopher Hope is, and he's just left a briefing with the Prime Minister's spokesman, Mr Hope.
Hi Dawn, hi Tom. It is soaking wet in Downing Street. I'm the only one here apart from one other camera operator. I do my best for GB News, always. I bring you the news from the lobby briefing. Nearly go Christmas, but the Number 10 says on the Minette Batters farming review that these are fair reforms. Now, by that they're referring to the changes on agricultural property relief and inheritance tax. That will not change between now and April, when those changes coming in. Number 10 is very clear. They're looking at those 57 recommendations from the Batters review into how to improve for the farmers' lot and how it's treated by this government, but no plans to reform or change the family farms tax, as it's dubbed by critics. We talked also in the briefing with Number 10 spokesman about the concerns about jury trials. They tell us that the right to a jury will be removed permanently under the plans put forward by the Justice Secretary, David Lammy. They say the focus is on doing the right things for victims, not content that they're not happy that some of those have suffered long delays, and the government will not allow victims to suffer in this way. When I put to them, how about trying to hire more judges or open courts over the weekend rather than rip up an 800-year-old right to a jury we've had since Magna Carta? The Number 10 said that tinkering at the edges is not enough. These changes are permanent. No comment on reports today that there might be more delays to May local elections. We'll look at that later on GB News. And on the issue of Erasmus Plus, this re-entry to this £570 million scheme that the EU operate for young people, 100,000 Brits may take part, Number 10 says. They say it's a good deal and a huge win for young people. Now, yesterday for GB News, we spoke to Nick Thomas-Symonds. He's a cabinet minister, just as left Number 10 actually moments ago in another meeting. He is the person negotiating the Brexit unwind, I would call it, with the European Union. And he said this, defending that deal to us yesterday on GB News. We don't have that slot there, but he was very clear that this 30% discount on the money paid to enter this scheme, which could go up to towards £1 million after a few years, is a good deal. They call it Erasmus Plus because that means that young people, apprentices, other people from around the country can benefit, not just universities, and they will look again at their value for Monday. I think the slot is there now, so I think we can throw now to that clip.
I think it says about my negotiating skills that I've managed several things here that wouldn't have been within the capability of the previous Conservative government. Firstly, I've negotiated, yes, a 30% discount, which means £570 million for 2027 to 2028. But what that is that contributes to a pot of money, much of which we're flowing back here to the UK in the form of grants. It is 10 months after we start this programme. We will look at that balance between the cost and the participation. We'll have the actual data then of the number of people here in the United Kingdom who have benefited, which makes sure that we are absolutely doing this on a value for money basis.
There we have it, a good deal. Nick Thomas-Symonds says, what isn't clear though is when we left Erasmus, we replaced it with a scheme called a Turing scheme, which allows access to students around the world to come to the UK. This Erasmus scheme is only about the European Union, and as things stand, Number 10 tells us moments ago that the future of the Turing scheme has not yet been decided.
Wow. Chris Hope, thanks indeed for bringing us all of that from a very rainy Downing Street, the most intrepid of all the political editors of all of the channels. Thanks there for being in the slightly rainy Downing Street.
Intrepid is standing under umbrella. Come on.
No, as someone who's stood in that street through the most horrific weather conditions, it's not just the rain.
How incredibly brave of you, Tom.
It's a wind tunnel because it sits between St James's Park and Whitehall, and whenever it's slightly cold and there's a slightly chilly breeze, just the wind just rushes through there, and there's no sunshine because it's quite a narrow street, so you're in the cold, the dark, the wind and the rain, utterly miserable. So yes,
small violins at the ready, folk.
Well, still to come on Good Afternoon Britain.
Yeah, young boys are to be sent to misogyny lessons at school as the government launches a crackdown on violence against women and girls. But is this really necessary?
And next, we'll be discussing Britain's £8 billion plus bill after the Prime Minister agreed a deal to rejoin the EU's expensive student Erasmus scheme.
Yeah, so you don't want to move a muscle, do you? This is GB News, Britain's news channel. We'll see you soon.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, weekdays from 9 p.m.
Look, this is winter. It's flu. Flu comes in winter. Sure as eggs is eggs. There's nothing particularly special about the virus. It has mutated, but that change has made it able to spread through the community by defeating our existing immunity. But the virus itself remains the same in terms of its clinical impact. So while it's a problem at a community and population level, lots of cases, for people who catch this, it's no worse than normal seasonal flu. It's not like we've got a supercharged flu that makes people much iller. We've got a virus that's spreading better and it's come earlier. So we're seeing it rising up the sort of infectious disease rates faster for this time of year. And there are a number of reasons for that, partly because it is a different virus, it's mutated. We haven't seen this particular strain spread for a couple of years. So population immunity levels are quite low. That's why it's
so what you said there, very calm, very rational, quite reassuring, to be honest with you, seems very logical, understandable. Earlier today, the BBC decided to do a report that looked a lot like this. Let's play the clip.
The throwback, isn't it? We were used to wearing these a few years ago. Now this is the precaution being taken. Also, people are being told to make sure their hands are clean and that they're not bringing germs into the hospital.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we haven't got time to play it all, but she goes on to, like, you know, use the hand sanitizer. Again, I'm just wondering if it's a little bit fear-mongery.
Well, look, we must take flu seriously because it's a fact that if we tot up the excess mortality in the wintertime, just in the UK, and we attribute a lot of this excess mortality to flu, in an average year, maybe 5,000-6,000 people will lose their lives to flu. And in a bad year, it might be as high as 20,000. So we don't take this lightly. We're not complacent about flu.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is...
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. And here's some good news for those of you who like having more tax taken from your bank accounts. Yes, Britain is set to pay an over £8 billion bill after Sir Keir Starmer agreed to rejoin the European Union's student exchange programme.
Nice of him, isn't it? Yeah, ministers announced on Wednesday that Britain would rejoin that Erasmus scheme, and no, it's not a character in Harry Potter either, which will allow students to spend a year studying at a European university.
But also will fund Europeans coming studying at our better universities.
And there's a lot more of them.
But with Labour estimating that rejoining the scheme will cost £570 million in 2027, and that's with a one-year discount, rising to £840 for the next year and those thereafter. Can the government really justify spending almost £1 billion a year on a student exchange programme?
And you know what? This story is in all your papers today, obviously, and every single paper has a different figure. So quite how any 8 billion, 6 billion, think of a number and you're halfway there.
I think what they're doing here is that it's a multi-year cost.
Right.
So I think what the Telegraph is looking at is maybe an 8 or a 10-year cost, and the Daily Mail's looking at a 5-year cost. I think it's something like that. The annual figure will be 840 million, as far as I'm aware.
He would know that. He really would know that. OK, let's get some expert advice on this one. Public Affairs Manager, European Movement, Joe Megan. Joe, good to see you. Joe, this sounds like an awful lot of money. What are we getting for it?
We're getting a massive amount. We're getting access to the European knowledge economy. We have, as Tom just said, we have some fantastic universities here. One of our greatest exports is our learnings and culture, and we're now going to be able to do that on a large scale. We have European students come here, they learn here, they become passionate about the UK. This is one of our best areas of soft power building, is through schemes like Erasmus. You know, you look at even Ursula von der Leyen, the EU president, is ex-pupil of LSE. You know, this is a fantastic way as a country to carry on spreading our culture, our knowledge, our relationships across the continent.
OK, Joe, here's the funny thing. With international students, most universities think this is a boon, right? International students pay a lot of money to come to the UK. Mm-hmm. We have hundreds of thousands of them every single year, bringing money in. And yet, funnily enough, when it comes to the European Union and this scheme, we have to pay the money for the students to come here. I mean, that's the wrong way round, is it not?
I mean, when you're looking at it, so the students will be coming here. So the numbers that are being talked about, the 500 or so million to be part of the Erasmus scheme. That doesn't include any of the incoming costs of the students living and working in the UK. Students are a great economic driver. Anyone who lives in a university town knows students go out drinking, partying, you know, bringing money in, renting. They economically, a young student is one of the best actors you can bring into your country, and we're going to be bringing
Sorry,
in...
a young student is one of the best actors you can bring. Economic, not sort of, I don't know, investment bankers, not international lawyers, but students paying £5 for a pint down at the student union bar. That's what's going to rejuvenate our economy.
Yes, it's a fantastic cultural addition.
Sorry, a student spending a fiver in his local union bar is a cultural addition?
Yes, yeah, of course. And I didn't necessarily say in his local bar, but as people visiting the country, young people getting to know the country, and then going back to their own country, taking home a sense of UK and UK education is fantastic.
OK, so Joe, what do our students get going abroad? I mean, you know, as Tom said just now, we have the best universities in Europe already. Slightly expensive for our students, granted. So what do our students get out of this?
They get to learn foreign languages, they get to travel, they get to see other cultures. I mean, it's life enriching for anyone that does it. And also, almost half of it is students. The other half is schools, work programmes, apprenticeships. Yeah. It's a very wide scheme that's going to enrich the cultural and educational lives of the UK.
I think you'd be hard-pressed to find anyone that said, you know, going abroad isn't a good and enriching experience. But, I mean, we already have a programme that does this. The Turing scheme was set up in the wake of Brexit. 40,000 students left the country last year to go on the Turing scheme, including to European countries. And that cost a tiny, tiny fraction of the cost of this Erasmus programme now. I mean, a lot of people will look at this and start to think, hang on, are we just being absolutely rinsed here? I mean, what are we actually getting that's different from the programme that we already had that could have cost a tenth of the money that we'll now be sending to Brussels? I mean, it seems on the face of it like a bit of a scam.
Well, firstly, it is a much larger programme than the Turing programme. I mean, the Turing programme at present hasn't been cancelled either. You know, that has not ended. It possibly might run concurrently, go to non-European countries. The Erasmus scheme, I guess the plus element is a large part of Erasmus that affects, you know, schools, working, apprenticeships. They're going to allow UK and EU students, so sorry, the Turing scheme did not involve EU students coming here either to enrich our cultural educational programmes.
OK, Joe, thank you very much. That's Public Affairs Manager at the European Movement, Joe Megan. Now, all I heard was about a lot of cultural enrichment. Sorry, I'd rather keep the 9, 6 billion, 8 billion, whatever it is, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, at the time that taxes are going up, and that our budgets are being squeezed and things are being cut, and they've just cancelled a tram project in Leeds.
You're obsessed with the tram project, Tom. You do know that,
Leeds is the largest Western European city without any form of mass public transit system. I mean, it's one of the reasons why the north of England is less rich than it should be, because it's harder to get about. Yeah. And then we're saying, let's spend more on sort of some French people having a jolly over a summer in Britain.
You'll be culturally enriched.
Sure, but I'd rather be financially enriched.
Me too. Let us know what you think. gbnews.com/you'll say. Students culturally enriching you, or 6 billion, 8 billion, 9 billion, depending on what paper you're reading today.
Well, coming up, young boys are to be sent to misogyny lessons at school as the government launches a crackdown on violence against women and girls. Is this really necessary? Could it be counterproductive even? Well, we'll hear from Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips.
After that and much more after your latest news headlines with, wonderful Sam Francis.
Very good afternoon to you. 12:34, the top story. Teachers will be trained to spot early signs of misogyny under a £20 million government plan aimed at halving violence against women and girls within a decade. The strategy focuses on preventing the radicalisation of young men with lessons on consent, online harms and healthy relationships, plus extra support for high-risk pupils. Well, we'll stay with that story and take you live now to the House of Commons to hear from the Safeguarding Minister, Jess Phillips, as she makes that statement.
Reported. Behind every one of these figures is a woman or girl whose life has been shattered, and behind every crime lies a perpetrator who all too often gets away scot-free. For too long we have accepted these statistics as simply a fact of life. Today, this government says no more. We are calling violence against women and girls the national emergency that it is. We are committing to halve these horrific crimes within a decade, and today we publish the strategy that sets us on that journey. This strategy does something that none before it ever has. Until now, responsibility for tackling violence against women and girls has been left to only the crime-fighting departments, working so often in isolated ways, providing support that is vital, but often too late to truly change the story. This strategy is different. It deploys the full power of the state across national government and local government. It draws on the experiences of victims and the power of the third sector to transform our approach to these crimes in our schools, our police forces, from housing to healthcare, on our streets and behind closed doors, online and offline. This strategy is designed to deliver 3 goals. Firstly, preventing boys and men from ever becoming abusers in the first place. Secondly, bearing down on perpetrators so those who have offended do not do so again. And finally, supporting victims so that they get justice when they seek it and the closure that they deserve. I will start with how we stop the violence before it starts. Because of the proliferation of content with the potential to poison young minds, the needs have never been greater. Our strategy tackles radicalisation and confronts concerning behaviour long before it spirals into abuse or violence. Education is undoubtedly key. We must empower teachers to challenge harmful attitudes and act before they escalate. So, to do so, we will invest 20 million to tackle harmful attitudes in young people. Our universal pledge is to fundamentally change how relationship, consent and attitudes can be embedded through education. This means changing the curriculum, developing teacher and external provider training on healthy relationships and consent. We will also develop targeted programmes for those starting to exhibit harmful behaviours, piloting interventions in schools focusing in and managing the risk where abusive behaviours are already starting to show. We will provide parents and frontline professionals with the support and training they need to spot the warning signs of misogyny and act on them. We will also make the UK one of the hardest places for children to access harmful content and misogynistic influences online. We must help our parents protect their children from harmful poison content. We will ban nudification tools which currently enable users to strip clothes and produce intimate images without the consent of those depicted. And we will work with technology companies to make it impossible for children in the UK to take, share or view nude images through nudity detection filters. First and foremost, our goal must be to stop these crimes from ever happening, and that means stopping anyone from ever becoming a perpetrator. But it also means bearing down on those who do commit these awful crimes. In this strategy, we set out significant new powers and tools to pursue these dangerous individuals. Today, police performance varies from force to force, with more than 2/3 of rape cases seeing a victim withdraw support in some police force areas. For that reason, by 2029, every police force in England and Wales will have a specialist rape and sexual offences team. Mirroring the approach taken by the Metropolitan Police, we will also ensure police forces use the same data-driven approach to tracking offenders that we apply to terrorists and serious organised criminals. New forensic technology will be used to track down rapists and sex offenders, allowing us to reopen cold cases and bring offenders to justice many years after they thought they had got away with it. We will ramp up our efforts to take perpetrators off our streets, and we will pursue them online too. Following the approach long applied to disrupting child sex abusers and acknowledging that violence against women and girls is increasingly happening online, we will deploy covert officers online to disrupt offending and bring criminals to justice. We must also do more to break the cycle of offending. Through the Drive project, we are investing 53 million in ensuring high-risk, high-harm domestic abusers are subject to intensive case management arrangements. And we will also roll out domestic abuse protection orders across England and Wales. Crucially, they can be applied for by a police officer or court, criminal or family. And unlike other orders, they do not rely on the victim to act. In the pilot locations alone, 1,000 victims have already been protected in this way. Now many more will be. Where crimes are committed, it is essential that we help those who have suffered get the justice they deserve, and as much closure as ever can be possible. I have spent most of my working life with victims of these crimes, and their voices have informed every decision that we have taken. We will be backing this strategy with over £1 billion in victims funding. This includes over £500 million for victims' services and another £500 million providing safe housing for victims of abuse as they escape their abusers. As part of this investment, we will support vital victims' helplines. We will set up new services to connect victims with specialist help through their GP and provide up to £50 million for therapeutic support for child victims of sexual abuse. In the short time I have today, I have only touched on a fraction of the measures in this strategy. One that signals in its entirety a transformation in the government's response. A government that is rising to the challenge of a national emergency that we face. But Madam Deputy Speaker, before I finish, I would like to take the opportunity to thank all of those who have helped us get to this point. I am particularly grateful to my counterpart, the Victims Minister in the Ministry of Justice, in her integral role in developing the strategy, as well as to the Home Secretary, her predecessor, now Foreign Secretary, the Deputy Prime Minister, and last but absolutely by no means least, the Prime Minister and the team at Number 10. They have stepped up to the plate with leadership and ambition, and I thank them all. I would also like to thank all of those across government in different departments who I may have been slightly annoying towards at times, but have stepped up admirably, from the National Health Service to police forces, to all of my colleagues sat beside me on the front bench today. They have worked incredibly hard, and the incredible dedication of the third sector, who have long rightly called for the government to do more. Most important of all, I would like to thank the victims of these awful crimes, those I have met and worked with for many years, whose bravery and determination have and always will inspire me, and kept me going through what seems like a very long career when it too often felt like change was impossible. Without their support, this strategy would have been impossible. It is above all else for them. Madam Deputy Speaker, may I end by imploring those here and far beyond these walls, this strategy is more than a document. It is a call from a government that recognises this as a national emergency, a government that is willing to back up its words with action. Ending violence against women and girls is the work of us all. Those who might spot a young boy at risk of turning down a darker path, those who might see troubling signs of behaviour in their friends, or perhaps even themselves. It will take all of society to step up and end the epidemic of abuse and violence that shames our country. The challenge is great, but I have never felt more confident that we can rise to it than I do today, because change is coming. We can make women and girls safe at last, and I commend this statement to the House.
Katie Lamb.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I wish you a very Merry Christmas. I'd like to start by thanking the Minister and the colleagues she has worked with for bringing forward this strategy today. Tackling violence against women and girls is a deeply noble aim, and one we very much share on this side of the House. Women and girls face particular threats, both in the home and at the hands of strangers. Previous Conservative governments fully understood this, which is why we took steps like setting up the Grooming Gangs Task Force, introducing measures to make it easier for victims to pre-record evidence in rape cases, and rolling out 700 more independent sexual violence advisors to support and work with victims through the police and court process. I'd like to pay particular tribute to my right honourable friends, the members for Louth and Horncastle and for Staffordshire Moorlands, for their work in leading the efforts of previous governments on this issue, and to my honourable friend, the member for Rutland and Stamford, who I know is looking forward to working collaboratively with the government on next steps after she returns from maternity leave. But the work of keeping us all safe is never done, so I would like to further welcome the steps taken in this strategy to continue and enforce a lot of that work, particularly those steps to ensure national coverage of specialist rape and sexual offence police teams, to apply new forensic technology to cold cases, and to roll out domestic abuse protection orders. Truly protecting women and girls demands that we have difficult and sometimes awkward conversations. Conversations about sex and consent, about private lives and criminality in the home, and about who is committing these crimes and why. Relationships between men and women, relationships between parents and children are delicate, particular, and shaped by long-standing norms and beliefs. Not every country and culture in the world believes, as we do, that women are equal to men, with personal, bodily, and sexual autonomy. And where people from those countries and cultures come here, this can be dangerous. Do not take my word for it. The Defence Counsel for Isra Niyazal, an Afghan asylum seeker convicted of raping a 15-year-old girl, argued that Niyazal did not understand the age of consent or the concept of consent more broadly, because no such concept exists in Afghanistan. If we cannot be honest about this, we will fail to achieve the first of this strategy's goals, preventing men and boys from becoming abusers. Despite repeated attempts by my Conservative colleagues to secure the release of comprehensive data on migrant crime, the government still refuses to publish the full breakdown. The indicative data that we have suggests shocking variations in crime rate by nationality and immigration status. According to data from the Ministry of Justice, foreign nationals make up a third of all convictions for sexual assaults against women, despite making up between 11% and 12% of the population. Afghans and Eritreans, the nationalities which made up the largest number of small boat crossings this year, are more than 20 times more likely to be convicted for sexual offences than British nationals. Each and every case of sexual assault is wrong. Perpetrators must face the full force of the law, regardless of nationality. And it remains the case that, statistically, the most dangerous place for a woman to be is in her own home. But we must be able to have an informed and honest debate about whether mass migration is making this problem worse, particularly when a large number of recent migrants come here from countries where attitudes to women are very different from our own. The Minister spoke rightly of the importance of a data-driven approach. So will she work with her ministerial colleagues to release the full data on crime by nationality, including as it relates to violence against women and girls, so we can fully understand this problem in order to tackle it? This is relevant not only for the sort of violence and sexual violence against women and girls which had sadly always existed in this country, but also for specific cultural practices which are new to this country and imported. Just this week, an article published in the British Medical Association's academic journal highlighted how differing cultural attitudes towards women can influence behaviour. That piece on the apparent harms of the global campaign against female genital mutilation argued that in many cultures, women's bodies, I quote, may be perceived as belonging to a larger group rather than being subject to individual choices and preferences. It went on to argue that an emphasis on women's bodily autonomy can therefore be traumatic to those of other cultures. This is wrong. Individual autonomy is the bedrock of our laws, our culture, and our country, as I'm sure all of us in this House will agree. So finally, will the Minister please join me in affirming that whoever you are, wherever you may have come from, wherever your family may have come from, and whatever may have happened to you, if you are a woman in Britain, your body belongs to no one but yourself.
Minister. I thank the honourable lady, and in the list of people who put in effort over the years in this regard, I think as well I would like to make a special mention of Baroness May, who I worked with for many years on many of these issues. In answer to the honourable lady's questions, with really specific answer about data, she is absolutely right that currently data collections on a variety of different issues have been neglected for quite some years and are not good enough, and issues around how we collect, whether it's ethnicity data or other forms of data that will inform this strategy, are vitally important. And as somebody who has been a pro-choice member of Parliament and a pro-choice advocate my entire life, I am more than happy to stand here and say that it is a woman's right to make any decision, and I hope that always the Honourable Lady and anyone would join me in telling anyone from anywhere, including when they are of our own ranks and our own communities, that it is nobody else's business what I do with my body. And so I'm more than happy to say that. What I would also say to the Honourable Lady is that this government has deported an increased number of foreign national offenders, 12% increase since her government's period in office, and has passed much stronger laws, for example, on the rights of asylum seekers. For example, I believe that members opposite voted against the bill that contained this, to not be able to claim asylum in our country. But what I would also say to the Honourable Lady was, if the only crime that I had to concern myself with halving was that was committed by people who arrive in our country, my job would be considerably easier, because the vast majority of the data that I am talking about is around people who were born in our country, abusing other people who were born in our country, from every culture, from every creed. There is absolutely, I have yet to come across any community where violence against women and girls does not happen.
Sarah Owen.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I of course welcome the new Borg strategy and thank both the Victims Minister and the Safeguarding Minister, who have worked so hard.
Well, there we have it. An extraordinary display there in the House of Commons. The strategy announced by Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips, but also an incredibly detailed response from Katie Lamb, the Conservative Shadow Minister, who turned to focus on issues of migrant crime and of integration.
OK, joining us now to go through all this is Charlie. Charlie, what do we make of what you just heard?
Well, let's go through what the Minister announced before we reflect on Katie Lamb's response. Jess Phillips making another pledge as part of this week-long announcement of violence against women and girls strategy, talking about now they're going to bring in blocks on nudification tools. Now, these are apps and technology that allow users to turn images into nude versions of them. They have been used to abuse women. They've been an issue that Ofcom have taken up as well, applying fines to companies in the last month on those that have these tools available. One company we know has actually applied to be struck off after a fine was brought forward. So we do know that recent state power has had an effect. This comes as Jess Phillips says she wants to use the full power of the state in her violence against women and girls strategy. In the Home Office release on this, they say that 276,000 sexual deepfakes were found on a single dedicated site in 2023.
And a deepfake is one of these images
That's
where
right.
A normal photograph has been made to artificially be nude.
That's right. And on the specific use of these nudification services, they also said that worldwide, 24 million people visited one of those services in September 2023 alone. And the Internet Watch Foundation, who've also released a statement with this announcement, they found that 9 in 10 reports to them were facilitating child sexual abuse as well. So this is a really critical issue for them to be diving in. Another announcement that they're bringing forward. But on the back of that announcement, we heard from Katie Lamb in her reaction, welcoming this announcement and lots of work being done by the government on this. But she said, truly protecting women and girls demands difficult and awkward conversations. And the minister, Shadow Minister, saying who is committing these crimes and why. And then she referred to culture. And she said that when people from those cultures come here, it can be dangerous. And she spoke about a case of an Afghan asylum seeker who'd been convicted of raping a 15-year-old girl. And part of his defence was to say that he didn't understand consent and the different cultural practices in this country. She also said that data from the Ministry of Justice showed that the rates of sexual assaults against women, foreign nationals, were a third of all of those cases, and also pointed to data released earlier this year that showed that both Afghans and Eritreans were 20 times more likely to be convicted than British nationals. And it's that sort of data that actually led to Christopher Hope, our political editor, asking Jess Phillips this morning, what are you going to do to re-educate men when they come from those cultures? Because the first announcement we had from the government this morning was talking about re-educating boys aged 11 away from being radicalised by toxic masculinity and Andrew Tate online. And when we're thinking about this yesterday, speaking with Chris's producer and the team here at GB News, we were thinking, actually, toxic masculinity influences are a problem, don't get me wrong, but there's no mention on how they might re-educate people coming from a potentially far more dangerous impulse, which is cultures where marital rape is legal, where there is a patriarchal system which very much puts women as second-class citizens. Where's the focus on re-educating those men?
Where the age of marriage in some of these Islamic cultures is as low as 9.
That's a huge problem. To adapt, to bring your culture into this country. I mean, Jess Phillips said when she was pointing to that question, we'll expect them to live up to our values and we'll apply the law strictly on them and deport them if they break the law. And she said also there's been a 12% rise of deportation under the Labour Party. But of course, what we've seen so many times recently is foreign nationals being convicted of sex offences and they're not being deported due to human rights legislation. So this is a can of worms for the government. Katie Lamb putting that pressure on, asking Jess Phillips, will she urge the government to release full data on crime by nationality, including as it relates to violence against women and girls? Also saying, Katie Lamb, that women are facing most danger in their own home, but we must have an informed and honest debate. We'll get more reactions to that later.
Yeah, absolutely. Huge story. I've got so many questions on this. I really have. Charlie Peters, thank you very much for bringing us up to date on that one.
Well, much more to come in the next hour, of course, on this story and on much else. Don't move a muscle.
It's the big one. Your chance to win a whopping £85,000 in tax-free cash. The largest cash prize we've given away to date. That's like over £7,000 a month extra in your bank account each month for 12 whole months. That's a year of yes. Yes to holidays, yes to treats, yes to shopping trips, yes to home improvements. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Thank you, Matt. Let's hear now from the King.
This is a season when our thoughts turn to celebrations with our friends and families. In the midst of this festive period, I just wanted to ask you to join me today in finding a special place in your hearts and your minds and prayers for the hundreds of thousands of people across our United Kingdom who receive a cancer diagnosis each year, and for the millions more who love and care for them. I know from my own experience that a cancer diagnosis can feel overwhelming. Yet I also know that early detection is the key that can transform treatment journeys, giving invaluable time to medical teams and to their patients the precious gift of hope. These are gifts we can all help deliver. Throughout my own cancer journey, I've been profoundly moved by what I can only call the community of care that surrounds every cancer patient, the specialists, the nurses, researchers and volunteers who work tirelessly to save and improve lives. But I have also learned something that troubles me deeply. At least 9 million people in our country are not up to date with the cancer screenings available to them. When bowel cancer is caught at the earliest stage, around 9 in 10 people survive for at least 5 years. When diagnosed late, that falls to just 1 in 10. Early diagnosis quite simply saves lives.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 1 o'clock on Thursday, the 18th of December. I'm Dawn Neeson.
And I'm Tom Harwood.
Change is coming. We can make women and girls safe at last.
Young boys will be sent to misogyny lessons at school as the government launches a crackdown on violence against women and girls. But is it really necessary?
And Britain is facing an £8 billion plus bill after the Prime Minister agreed to all of the terms of the European Union. Indeed, this student Erasmus scheme that critics are calling incredibly inflated on the basis of cost. Are we now at the mercy of Brussels?
And a major government review finds British farmers are bewildered and scared for the future amid major concerns over tractor tax. We could have told you that one.
This afternoon, the Bank of England announces that interest rates will fall to their lowest level since February 2023, off the back of a drop in inflation yesterday.
But is it all good news? Are you celebrating at that, or are we still headed for a Rachel Reeves recession?
And Sainsbury's have been forced to pull a Christmas card because it was branded transphobic. As it said, this Christmas, I'm identifying as a Grinch. Well, we'll be asking, has all the sort of Christmas festive joy been snatched, been grinched away? Has Christmas now truly been ruined?
So hold on. So, right, if I say I'm identifying as the Grinch, right, I don't like Christmas parties. Lots of people don't. I'm identifying as the Grinch because I don't like Christmas parties. People are upset by that, aren't they?
I'm not surprised that people who are professionally upset by things are upset by something. What I am genuinely surprised about is that the supermarket in question withdrew the card because half a dozen people said they were upset. Could you imagine what would happen if half a dozen people say they're upset about just about anything? You can get anything taken off the shelves now? I mean, is this the country we live in?
I'll tell you what, OK, if you're listening to supermarkets, I'm upset by some of the cards for wives, all right? Why are the words horrible? Well, they also pink. Can I just have something with a bit more... something going on? You know, pink floral cards for wives. I'm really upset. Can we get them removed from shelves now?
I'm upset that all supermarkets sell Brussels sprouts, and I think they should be cancelled.
That's Brusselist.
Good. I mean, it's just extraordinary, the double standards, right? I mean, could you imagine just any other product category where someone can just sort of say that they're annoyed and then it gets removed from our shelves? What happened to communist... Stop. If you don't like the card, don't buy the card.
Oh, and by the way, I tweeted, if you follow me on Twitter, have a look at it, or X, whatever you call it. I tweeted a TV Times front cover from 1973. Barbara Windsor, Sid James, Carry On Christmas. Have a look. It was brilliant. It was when Britain had a sense of humour.
Oh, to be returning to those days. Well, this is GB News. You can get involved, gbnews.com/your say, as you can see an extraordinarily large lettering at the bottom of your screen. You can also scan that QR code to get involved in the conversation.
That one.
Yeah,
and
there it is.
Nearly got it.
Nailed it. All to come after your very latest news headlines with Sam. Very good afternoon to you from the newsroom. At the top story this lunchtime, the safeguarding minister says she's sick of putting plasters on ever-growing scars as the government has unveiled its strategy to halve violence against women and girls within the next 10 years. Jess Phillips says the focus is now firmly on prevention, with all secondary school pupils to be taught about healthy relationships and teachers trained to spot worrying behaviour in young men early. Children who show harmful behaviour towards family members or partners will also be referred to behaviour change programmes, alongside a new helpline for teenagers concerned about their own actions. But the Domestic Abuse Commissioner warns the plans don't go far enough, saying schools are already overstretched and investment falls far short of what's needed to drive real change.
Australia's Prime Minister has said new hate speech laws are coming after Sunday's deadly shooting at a Jewish festival in Bondi Beach. 15 people were killed when 2 gunmen opened fire during a Hanukkah event, prompting Anthony Albanese to promise tougher penalties for those spreading hate and radicalisation. The reforms include new visa powers, harsher sentencing for online abuse and a federal offence of aggravated hate speech. Mr Albanese has admitted he could have done more to counter anti-Semitism, saying his responsibility now is to unite the nation, not deepen division. Well, in a British exclusive, Victoria Teplitsky, the daughter of a Holocaust survivor wounded in that attack, told us earlier that authorities have failed to do enough to confront anti-Semitism.
The Holocaust didn't happen overnight. The Holocaust started by propaganda and lies about the Jews. And we know that's happened. We know that's happened in the schools in the UK, throughout America, in Australia. You can see that the youth have been brainwashed.
Also, this lunchtime, the Bank of England has cut interest rates to their lowest level in nearly 3 years. The base rate has been reduced to 3.75%, falling below 4% for the first time since January 2023. The move follows lower than expected inflation, slower wage growth and signs that the economy is cooling. It's good news for borrowers with cheaper mortgages and loans, but savers are likely to see their returns fall. Hospitals in England are on high alert after new figures showed flu cases have hit record levels as resident doctors continue their 5-day strike action. More than 3,000 patients were in hospital with flu just last week, the highest ever for this time of year. The North West has, though, seen a small fall in admissions, but NHS leaders warn pressure remains intense, with one senior doctor saying hospitals are nowhere near out of the woods just yet. The farming sector is being left bewildered and frightened by government policy, according to a new review commissioned by ministers. The report, led by former NFU President Baroness Minette Batters, calls for a new deal for profitable farming, warning that costs are rising while weather conditions become more extreme. Although inheritance tax changes weren't formally within that review's scope, farmers did raise it as the single biggest threat to viability. The report also highlights deep concern over changes to post-Brexit farming payments, with some questioning whether their businesses can survive at all. And the Prince and Princess of Wales have released a new family photograph for their Christmas card this year. Shared on Kensington Palace's social media, the image shows William and Catherine sitting in the grass with George, Charlotte and with Louis. It was taken in Norfolk in April by photographer Josh Shiner, with a message that reads, "Wishing everyone a happy Christmas." Those are the lunchtime headlines. I'll be back with you shortly. Next, though, a look at the markets.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GBNews Financial Report.
Just coming up to 8 minutes past 1, the markets for you. The pound will buy $1.3357 and €1.1390 euros. The price of gold, £3,241, 36 pence per ounce. And the FTSE 100 is at 9,797 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GBNews Financial Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 8 minutes past 1, and we can now hear from the Prime Minister speaking about the government's strategy to tackle violence against women and girls.
Let me reassure them and everybody else. Violence against women and girls is a critical mission of the government. So it's a political priority. It's also a personal priority. I've been working on this for the best part of 20 years. I've been absolutely determined to bring about this strategy. We wanted to bring in experts and groups and organisations that are absolutely expert and experienced. I'm really pleased we did that. We hosted them in Downing Street. I opened that, and I wanted to be part of the launch of the strategy. So let me reassure them that this is a real priority for the government and a real priority for me. I'm determined that we're going to halve violence against women and girls. Really difficult to do. I know that, they know that. But we are absolutely going to do this. And this strategy is, I think most people who've seen the strategy say this is a really good strategy. I've obviously spent a lot of time when I was Chief Prosecutor, dealing with those that have already been arrested and being put through our criminal courts. And yes, we need to improve that service and the protection that goes in for victims and survivors. But I've also been absolutely determined that we get in the preventative bit. And that's why it's really important to be here at the school, seeing young people go through relationship discussions. We've seen teenagers having quite open discussions about what is a healthy relationship, what is not a healthy relationship, because in the end we have to do the preventative bit as well. And I'm really conscious that, and I saw this for myself, the age at which individuals are in abusive relationships sometimes, or being abused or subjected to violence, is going down, not up. And therefore, yes, I want to strengthen what we do when we actually are able to prosecute cases, but I absolutely want to get in at the very early stage, protecting children who may be being exposed to abuse, maybe in their own household, but also just that discussion about a healthy relationship. Boys and girls, but particularly boys, teenage boys, I think it is vitally important.
OK, so that was the Prime Minister there talking about the announcement from Jess Phillips today about what the government are going to do to protect women and girls. And my head is literally exploding over that one. I fought for 20 years to make the world safer for women and girls, basically paraphrasing what you just heard from the Prime Minister there. This is a Prime Minister who, until a few months ago, didn't actually know what a woman was, had to be persuaded by women. From the government that turned down the grooming gang inquiry, again, had to be pressurised into that by, oh yeah, women. And there's also allowed over 40,000, mostly young men from violently misogynistic cultures to cross into our country illegally. That's why I'm very angry today, because he's done 20 years' worth of looking after women and girls. I'd hate to see what he'd have been doing if he hadn't been trying. Sorry, angry. Should we talk to Charlie Peters?
Profound points there. Let's speak to Charlie. Charlie, this is something that the government is trumpeting today. Will it work?
Well, they're describing it as a national emergency, treating violence against women and girls as a crisis with a widespread strategy. And they have announced so many measures this week over several days. The headline from this morning was about these new plans to educate boys as young as 11 about toxic masculinity and online misogyny. They were warning about the influence of Andrew Tate and talking about the rates of abuse in teenage relationships and how more healthy relationships need to be, guidance on that needs to be provided. In an updated statement from the Minister, the Safeguarding Minister, this afternoon, we heard about a new measure they're bringing in, which is a ban on these nudification tools, referring to new capabilities they're going to rely on to tackle those. They're going to say that a sweeping new law will come in to make it impossible for children to have sort of nude images created of them in this way. And it has been a widespread problem around the world. And there have been many cases of it in Britain. And their release on this, the information the Home Office is sharing, includes quotes from a girl who, as a teenager, was a victim of blackmail surrounding nude images. In her statement to the House, Jess Phillips also said that the government will be investing £20 million to stop those misogynistic views being embedded in society in the first place. There's going to be a helpline so that people, if they're concerned, can phone up. If perhaps they're recognising those views in themselves, it'll be extraordinary to see how busy that helpline is. I can't really imagine a schoolboy thinking, I'm worried about what I'm thinking, I'll phone a helpline. Yeah.
It's just not going to happen.
Some of the concern around this is about how effective it will be. And, you know, speaking about this on the channel all day, you know, a lot of presenters and a lot of people getting in touch saying, when you look at the detail here, when you think about what an 11-year-old boy might think, who will they listen to? The people online who say, you're a great guy, you know, men need to be strong and all the rest of it. Or a teacher who comes in and says, actually, that's toxic masculinity. It might, you know, in a sort of perverse way, push them further into the roots of those original sources.
Charlie, in recent decades, both you and I have been 11-year-old boys. I can't imagine... I can imagine a committee room of politicians and civil servants saying, oh, yes, we'll get the teachers to speak to the boys and that'll be fine, we'll solve everything. I mean, part of being a teenage boy is being rebellious.
Yeah.
And if a teacher comes forward and says, you shouldn't do this, you should do that, I mean, there'll be a significant subset of teenage boys who thinks, right, well then, I'll do exactly the opposite of what I'm told to do by the teacher.
Yeah, this is a concern expressed by a lot of our viewers and listeners this morning on gbnews.com/your say, getting in touch on this, saying that actually this might push young boys in the wrong direction. But, you know, as Jess Phillips was making that statement, commended it to the House, the response came from the Shadow Minister, Katie Lamb, who very much spoke about migration as having an increased risk to women, giving the Conservative response. Let's hear a clip of what she had to say.
Every country and culture in the world believes, as we do, that women are equal to men with personal, bodily and sexual autonomy. And where people from those countries and cultures come here, this can be dangerous.
And to reaffirm that point, she referred to the court defence of an Afghan sex offender when he was being tried. He said that he didn't understand the concept of consent, having been convicted of raping a 15-year-old girl. And she also claims, Katie Lamb, that the government hadn't published that full data on crime as regards to people from different nationalities. She urged the government to bring that forward and also urged for a debate on mass migration and its effects on violence against women and girls. But Jess Phillips' response to this was curious. She criticised Katie Lamb for this. And I just want to quote what Jess Phillips said. She said, "What I would also say to Lamb is if the only crime that I had to concern myself with having was committed by people who arrive in our country, my job would be considerably easier, because the vast majority of the data that I'm talking about is around people who were born in our country abusing other people who were born in our country." She said, "From every culture, from every creed, I have yet to come across any community where violence against women and girls does not happen." But I would just say that, I mean, that's not the point, perhaps, that Katie Lamb was making. The point that she was making was that there is an over-representation of offence among some cultures. She referred to Eritreans and Afghans being 20 times more likely to be convicted of sexual offences than Brits born here. But the point she's making, which the government, perhaps you could say, have dodged a touch with this response, is, you know, we need to talk about the effect of culture. We've got this strategy for re-educating boys, and the question that Christopher Hope put to Jess Phillips this morning was, what are you going to do about educating men who come from these cultures where women are treated like second-class citizens?
This is the point. We're an 85% white British country. Why, then, is less than 85% of violence against women and girls committed by white British people? Because of over-representation amongst these different groups. And it seems that the Safeguarding Minister, by just talking about absolute numbers rather than rates, rather than looking at numbers per capita, kind of misses the wood for the trees.
And it's when you look at rates and per capita that you can understand the potential drivers around motivation, around culture. I mean, it's interesting that this discussion is being had now at the same time as the government are committing to investigating the links between ethnicity, race, religion and the grooming gang scandal, saying they want to find those rates. The government admits that there is an overrepresentation of Pakistani men in these grooming gangs, but when it comes to broader violence against women and girls, when the same observation is being pointed out there, and Katie Lamb said that 1/3 of sexual assaults against women are by foreign nationals, according to the Ministry of Justice. There's still hesitation and resistance from the ministerial benches, from the Labour government on that point. So Katie Lamb calling for that debate to happen. I'm sure it'll rumble on elsewhere, but on that point specifically, when that was put to her, the minister said, I've yet to come across any community where violence against women and girls does not happen.
Which I found the most scary thing about that whole debate, the fact that Jess Phillips still doesn't get it. She still doesn't understand why we are talking about this, why you've been working so hard on the grooming gang scandal. She still doesn't get it. She still says, yeah, but men from all communities are rapists. Of course they are, but that's not the point. And plus you could stop importing more while you're at it, just saying. Charlie Peters, thank you so much. Brilliant.
There's so much more to delve into there, but we'll be covering it on the channel, of course, throughout the day. Elsewhere, it's been revealed that Britain is set to pay an extra, well, over £8 billion in taxpayers' money after Sir Keir Starmer agreed to join the European Union's student exchange programme.
Ministers announced on Wednesday that Britain would rejoin the Erasmus scheme, which will allow students to spend a year studying at a European university.
But with Labour estimating that rejoining the scheme will cost, well, £570 million in the first year, followed by £840 million each subsequent year, can the government really justify the expense?
We're joined now by Director at Independent Commission on UK-EU Relations, Mike Buckley. Well, can we justify this expense?
Yeah, of course we can. I mean, what you're saying is, can we justify spending money on educating British young people? And the answer to that was, of course, yes. I mean, we've done that, thankfully, for well over a century. We'll continue doing it. This is an incredibly important step for British young people and for European young people. It will bring British and young people back together, which is incredibly important for our future, for the future of Europe, particularly the unstable, the unsafe world that we're in. Yeah. But the greatest benefit is going to be up to 100,000 British young people going to European universities or going over there to work or to do vocational training, learning things that they could never otherwise learn.
When we will
the 8
remember...
billion figure you reference, that's completely hypothetical. It's a number that's been made up by the Daily Telegraph. It isn't a real number at all. As you said,
the annual number that I spoke about, 840 million, was referenced by Nick Thomas-Symonds. I mean, that is straight out of the government's mouth. But I want to ask you, Mike, in 2015-16, before the referendum, how many British students travelled abroad on Erasmus?
I think it was 17,000 is what I read earlier on today. I think it was 17 by 2018 or 2019 or something like that. But then, of course, times have changed, you know. And I think if our government now puts more, universities put more effort into enabling young people to go abroad, that figure is likely to increase. But even if it is only 17,000 people, that's still 17,000 people whose lives have been changed for the good.
For almost £1 billion in a single year.
That's not in a year at all. And what you're talking about is spending money on education,
will be in year 2 of this
why
scheme.
You think that's a bad thing. We also gain, by the way, for the fact that European young people will come here to be educated or get training, because of course they'll be contributing to our society, to our economy, and learning things and contributing to learning here that wouldn't happen any other way. I mean, I'm not surprised you're against it. But it's genuinely a great thing.
I'm not against it. It's a brilliant and wonderful thing for students to travel abroad and to experience it. What I am saying is that this country has been taken for fools. I mean, we are spending almost £1 billion a year on a scheme that could cost 1/10 of that. The EU's just rinsed us.
Again, the billion that you're referencing is a hypothetical number. The real figure is 570 million, which is what we've agreed to pay in 2027. Any numbers beyond that are hypothetical.
We have a one-year discount. Once the discount is disapplied in the second year, it will be £840 million.
But you don't know that the discount will be disapplied in the second year.
That's exactly what the EU has said it will be.
So it's not a real number. It's like imagining what your mortgage is going to be 5 years from now. You don't know what the interest rate is. So throwing around hypothetical numbers is all very well for your TV show, but it isn't real. And it is important that your viewers know that it isn't real. It's also important that they know this is something of real value, right? This is money that is worth spending. This is going to improve British young people's lives.
Well, Mike, thank you very much. That's all I can say for now. This one. That's our Director, Independent Commission on UK and EU Relations, Mike Buckley there.
Well, we're going to take you over to Europe now, where we can see live pictures from Brussels. Of course, hundreds of farmers from across Europe have descended on that capital city to protest the European agricultural policy. This as EU leaders meet to discuss all sorts of things, including how to pay for further aid to Ukraine. But pretty violent scenes here in Brussels.
Very, very dramatic there. If you are listening on radio, it seems like smoke bombs are going off there. There are riot police there in their helmets with their shields. It is a typical, what you expect, a European protest. I mean, obviously our farmers were said they couldn't drive down Whitehall with their fairy lights on their tractors, of course. But the Europeans are really kicking off there, and we all seem to have forgotten that these are the people that actually feed us all.
And it does also remind us just how restrained our farmers are.
Well,
you know, when our farmers turn up in London or other cities with their tractors and make their voices heard, they do so in a non-violent, non-invasive way. I mean, you have never found more polite protesters than our farmers here in Britain.
Yeah, it is quite incredible. We will be going back there if we have any more breaking news from that. But as I said, quite dramatic pictures there of riot police confronting farmers in their tractors and smoke bombs being released as well. Let us know what you think about that one. More on that one later. gbnews.com/your say is the way to join in this conversation.
But also in the programme, boys as young as 11 could be sent on these anti-misogyny courses under new government plans to tackle violence against women and girls. But is the government ignoring the rising sexual violent crime from migrants? This is what the Minister for Safeguarding, Jess Phillips, said in the Commons.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. This is Good Afternoon Britain. It is 27 minutes past 1 already. Doesn't time fly? OK, we have been talking about misogyny. Do young boys in school need misogyny lessons? You've heard already this morning from Jess Phillips about what she intends to do about violence against women and girls. So let's have a debate, shall we? Joining us now is feminist campaigner Venice Allen and journalist Peter Lloyd, who writes a lot about men's rights as well. So this should be a good conversation, one thinks. OK, well, we've heard a lot. Let's come to you first on this one, Venice. We've heard a lot this morning from the politicians. Misogyny lessons in schools for young men. What do you reckon?
Well, I've got two young men. I've got two sons. One's 16 and one's 18, and they've both very recently had these classes, one at university and one in sixth form. So I did ask them quickly before I came, what did they think about them? My eldest at university, it's actually compulsory at university. If you don't do the course, you have to, like, score in it. But if you don't actually complete the course, you can't continue with your degree in science. Got nothing to do with it. He said, actually, his take was that it was okay, it was obvious. He thought maybe some of his peers needed to hear it, but I'm not that convinced. But, like, he said it wasn't the worst. He said that he remembered when he was at secondary school, they did the bullying ones, which the boys and girls both had to do, the anti-bullying ones. He said they were ridiculous. My youngest son at sixth form said that, it was okay, a cool guy came in, and it was better than maths. It was a bit of a break, and this cool guy came in. It wasn't one of their teachers. I think I heard some people talking about, I think if one of your, like, female teachers did it, it would be so cringe. But this kind of cool guy came in and talked to them, and he was like, I knew it all, but maybe there were a few things I hadn't thought about before. And in this climate of pornography and I mean, like, just it's so much around that maybe some boys who aren't brought up well don't know it.
OK, well, Peter, even if it's just some chap coming into school, gets you out of maths, no bad thing.
Ugh. No, not at all.
Well, maths is pretty horrible, to be fair.
I would rather do maths than a course on misogyny, which, I'm sorry, it's just such basic bitchery. I mean, just because something happens that a woman doesn't like doesn't mean it's misogyny. We've got to stop labelling every single thing as misogyny. And for 60, 70 years now, feminism has decided that we must treat the genders the same. So why are we not having girls going through these similar courses on how they should respect men and boys? Why aren't we teaching them to reject misandry, which is rife within the feminist movement? No one's doing that. Girls' behaviour is completely unchecked. They can hate boys, they can hate men, they can hate masculinity as much as they like. Nothing happens to them. This isn't really about ending misogyny. This is about furthering feminist propaganda and programming boys.
Venice?
Well, I think, you know, I'm going to give Peter some credit here that I think actually surrounding this whole conversation about the word misogyny is actually really unhelpful. Like, I think actually the words we should be talking about is like rape, sexual assault, upskirting, all the things that happen to teenage girls in school. Let's not talk about... I mean, OK, yeah, we can talk about the ideology behind it, but it's not really that. It's like we've got crimes that are being committed by underage kids and grown men. Let's enforce the rules that we have and make the boys and the girls aware of what is a crime and what isn't a crime and why.
I mean, I would say that's already pretty obvious. And the great irony I find in this is that Jess Phillips, a.k.a. Queen Karen, she's the one driving this regime, and she's saying that she's going to target white working-class boys. I am sorry, white working-class boys are not the problem. Maybe she should be going out and targeting gangs of Muslim men and Pakistani Muslims that rape girls. They are the problem more than white working-class boys. It's an outrage. It's so patronising that white working-class boys, who are the worst-performing demographic in schools, are targeted. Perhaps people like Jess Phillips should be focusing on their academic achievement.
Well, my kids go to school and university in the middle of London, so they're not all white working-class boys. It's actually a mixture of class and race, I'd say. But I do agree that it's crazy that the government can go on and on about misogyny and consent when they're not addressing... Because the fact is, I think your mother and your father should teach you this stuff. I don't think it should be at school, really.
Right.
And I think that there is a big elephant in the room, is that we've been putting these cultures in where they do have, like... If we actually protect those mothers, those boys, Muslim mothers, from being, like, treated badly by their dads, that's going to have more effects on those boys in the class. You know, if we're enforcing the crime, I'm going back to that, and we make our culture safe for women who are in these situations, to show a positive role model to them as Muslim sons or whatever.
But that's not going to happen if Labour are importing 40,000 savage men from the Middle East every year.
Katie Lamb was brilliant, wasn't she, right? She was brilliant in the chamber just now, I heard it. And I agree with that. I just think there is a real problem. I think that women are at risk of sex crimes from men, but it's like, I don't think... This reminds me of showing adolescence to every child in the school.
Yeah,
what happens to that?
That was also
Neither of my kids was shown adolescence. Good, because that was ridiculous.
I mean, I don't know how much time we've got left, but I actually said, I think your producer has got some photographs, some screenshots that I wanted to just quickly reference on screen.
I don't think we have them, Peter, but I did want to just put to you this one question, which is, yes, of course, there are cultures and certain groups of migrants that disproportionately commit crime compared to people who are born in this country. But when it comes to absolute numbers, do we also want to involve those that are native Brits? Is there a risk of talking about migrant crime to the exclusion of native crime?
No, I don't think so. I think it's just a case of being realistic and using common sense. It's madness to be targeting young boys, some as young as 6 years old, when you've got savage men coming over in dinghies who are now being convicted of sex crimes. It's ludicrous.
But we do have to take issue. I mean, I've done a big feature on this for a magazine recently, and many of the young women I interviewed, many of them 15, 16-year-old, were talking about going out with their boyfriends, and many young men these days think that strangulation is part of making love. love.
I'm sorry, loads of women love that kind of aggressive stuff. Look, it was women who were buying 50 Shades of Grey. It wasn't men who were buying that. Loads of women love that stuff.
Would you just like to respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. It was women buying that sort of quite trashy erotica novel. That you compare that one book that women were maybe getting a bit into, you know, while they're reading, to the absolute 1/3 of the internet is pornography. Like
pornography has existed since the beginning of time.
No, but it's gone completely different, Peter. Now it's like you say, Dawn, strangulation, rape. So a lot of it's really racist. It's like, you know, I don't even want to repeat what some of the titles that I've seen when I've been looking at, researching it from a feminist point of view. Like, you couldn't get away. It's all hate speech, and I don't even agree with hate speech.
Okay, so for example, what are we going to do about in the last few years, there have been a scourge of female teachers who have groomed and raped young boys. So when are we going to teach?
We need to enforce the law.
When are we going to teach female teachers not to groom and rape young boys? Are these
what
the same
are the
teachers?
Figures, though?
Are they? They're quite substantial.
Is it? I don't know the figures. I have
they're
to say
quite
between
substantial.
Female teachers and male teachers, opposite sex, same sex. I don't know.
Are these female teachers who are raping young boys? Are they the ones who are going to be teaching young boys about misogyny? I mean, this is ludicrous. When are we going to hold women to account? Women commit 40% of domestic violence. No one ever talks about it.
Well, that is a smaller proportion than the 60%.
Yeah, but it's still incredibly substantial.
OK, well, Peter and indeed Venice, thanks so much for the spirited discussion. Really appreciate both of you coming in to discuss that.
And, of course, let us know what you think. gbnews.com/your say.
And indeed, the Bank of England have announced that interest rates will fall to their lowest levels since February 2023, off the back of disappointing economic news with GDP contracting in the last monthly figure. Well, are we headed for that Rachel Reeves recession, or will this interest rate cut turn things around? All of that and much more after your latest news headlines with Sam.
Very good afternoon to you. The top stories this lunchtime. The government says it is moving from reaction to prevention as it's unveiled plans to halve violence against women and girls within a decade. Ministers want earlier intervention in schools, with all secondary school pupils now taught about healthy relationships and teachers to be trained to spot worrying behaviour in young men. Sir Keir Starmer says toxic ideas are taking hold too early and that the government must step in soon.
This is a real priority for the government and a real priority for me. I'm determined that we're going to halve violence against women and girls. Really difficult to do. I know that, they know that, but we are absolutely going to do this.
Bank of England has cut interest rates to 3.75%. That's the lowest level in nearly 3 years. The move follows lower inflation, slower wage growth and signs the economy is cooling. Borrowers are set to benefit from cheaper mortgages and loans, while savers are likely to see returns fall. Hospitals in England are today on high alert after flu cases have hit record levels. Resident doctors are also continuing their strike action. More than 3,000 patients were in hospital with flu just last week. Health leaders are warning pressure remains intense and say hospitals are nowhere near out of the woods. In the last half hour or so, PP MedPro, the company linked to Baroness Michelle Mone, has reportedly wound up by a specialist court. A judge ruled the firm should be placed into liquidation after it failed to repay £148 million owed to the government. That's over faulty PPE contracts during the pandemic. The decision makes it unlikely the taxpayers will ever recover the money. And hundreds of farmers from across Europe have descended on Brussels, protesting against EU agricultural policies. It comes as European leaders are meeting there today to decide whether frozen Russian assets should be used to fund Ukraine's war effort. Those are the lunchtime headlines. I'll have a full roundup for you at 2.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Welcome to your latest updates of the weather from the Met Office here on GB News. A wet one today for the vast majority. We have rain warnings in place across much of southern England and South Wales. Also quite windy, especially along the south coast, all thanks to this little wiggle, a rippling weather front that's bringing heavy and persistent rain across southern counties of England, spreading up into Wales, across into the Midlands and across northern England before lunchtime. So most of England and Wales very wet, very windy along the south coast. Good part of eastern Scotland, dry and fine. Heavy showery rain also coming into Northern Ireland and Western Scotland. However, the southwest may turn a bit drier later on. It's quite mild, but it doesn't feel all that mild with the winds and the heavy rain, which may cause further disruption. It continues to spread its way out into the North Sea through this evening, so actually much of the south will become drier for a time, but a line of heavy rain then starts to work back into Wales and southwest England this evening. Pretty soggy for Belfast and Glasgow as well. And eventually that rain will creep up towards Aberdeenshire. Largely dry day here, but that rain will move in as we go through the evening time. So as I said, most places pretty soggy through most of today. Do have this bit of a gap between the weather systems where the winds will fall light for a time, but then that band of showery rain will move across eastern England through this evening, giving another short burst of heavy rain. Then turns a lot drier for many as we go through the night. Showers will keep going in western Scotland, and it'll stay fairly gusty and blustery in western areas too. Temperatures dipping down into mid-single figures, but most places avoiding a frost. Friday, overall, a much drier, much brighter day, certainly for the Midlands and eastern and southern England. Generally, we'll see sunny spells here. Elsewhere, a mixture of bright spells and showers. Lots of showers for Scotland, some for the north coast of Northern Ireland. Still quite breezy, but the winds tending to ease as we go through the day. And again, temperatures 8 to 11 degrees.
Thank you, Britain, for making us the fastest growing news website in the UK. We're truly humbled, and we couldn't have done it without you.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The A34 northbound in West Berkshire is disrupted due to a broken down vehicle with one lane closed. The A303 eastbound in Somerset also has lane closures. Drivers on the M90 southbound Friarton Bridge should be cautious as a broken down vehicle is restricting traffic flow. The M4 has speed restrictions from Pilning to Cardiff Gate. In Surrey, drivers on the M25 clockwise between junction 5 and 6 face 30-minute delays. And on the trains, East Midlands Railway reports disruptions between Leicester, Corby and Bedford, while Great Western Railway has minor delays. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's now 20 to 2, and the Bank of England has cut interest rates for the first time in months, down from 4% to an astonishing drop, down to 3.75%.
Yes, I'm taking it seriously, actually. This comes as households face rising unemployment and declining inflation, taking borrowing costs down to their lowest level since January 2023.
Well, let's cross to our national reporter, Will Godley, who we've sent to a pub in East Sussex. Where else? Will?
Yeah, Tom, Dawn, I have been sent to a pub and I've commandeered these chaps' Christmas dinner. They've been friends for 50 years. They've had their annual Christmas dinner for the last 40 of them. But this is the first time I'm told they've ever spoken about interest rates over their Christmas turkey. But, fellas, certainly lots to talk about. Colin, what's your reaction to the cut today?
Personally, it really won't make that much difference to me, but I'm sure for the economy generally, it's a good step.
A good step, but Ahmed, is it going to bring you Christmas cheer?
Not to me, it won't be, but to younger generation who need mortgage, or they got mortgage, it's just coming to finish, and it will help them.
And Rick, lots of concerns about the cost of living at the moment. Do you think this cut to the interest rates will do anything to help?
I would assume so, as long as its energy prices might come down, hopefully. And I've got many children, and they're all struggling. Not so much food, but expenses for children, dancing lessons and going out to a pub like we are, they probably wouldn't do it. They'd rather keep their money in their kitty to pay for the overheads the family means, new shoes, new uniforms for school, children, etc.
Well, exactly. Thank you very much, chaps, for joining us on GB News. Enjoy your Christmas lunch. Merry Christmas from us. Not just a reaction here to the interest rate cut, also Rachel Reeves, who said it is the fastest pace of cuts in 17 years. Good news for families with mortgages and also businesses with loans. But she said there's more to do to help families. No word, though, about how she's going to help pubs. What do you make of that?
Disastrous, really. Hospitality is on its knees. And it's been caused largely by this Labour government, and in particular the Chancellor, who has done her utmost, I think, to sink the business. and it makes us feel very dispirited, very unhappy, and not looking to the future with any great feeling of prospects, of great feeling of prosperity.
Mike Edwards, co-owner here at the New Inn. The pub's pretty full today in the conservatory out there as well. Lots of people enjoying their Christmas lunch. But come January, there's fear amongst not just here but other pubs. That's going to be quite a difficult period. Why is that fear?
I think people are enjoying this month of December in the run-up to Christmas. It's a great festival for the whole community. They'll have spent all their money by the middle of January, and I think that from middle of January, February, probably till March, it's going to be a very, very tough time for all the hospitality units throughout the country. And that's such a shame, because it's such a fundamental part of the British way of life. But there you go.
Well, Mike Edwards, thank you very much for joining us on GB News. Some reaction there to this interest rate cut from the Bank of England announced today, going from 4% down to 3.75%.
Well, Will Godley, thanks indeed for being there for us and for keeping your hands off the pint pulling machine. What are they called? Pumps. I did once work in a pub. Can you imagine? So, Will,
I'm really glad I didn't go to that
Stay
pub.
dry until 5 o'clock. Thanks indeed for joining us.
Thank you. But those poor men, they're sitting having their Christmas dinner.
Yeah.
I mean, Will Godley sitting enjoying your Christmas dinner is lovely, but talking about Rachel Reeves and interest rates.
Ooh.
And it's not like is it gonna make a difference to your life? Seriously, let us know, because are you feeling elated by this? Are you suddenly feeling richer? Is the pound in your pocket feeling much more weighty? If you've still got a pound in your pocket, obviously. Most of us haven't now, obviously.
I have to remortgage next year, so I'm hoping for a couple more cuts, really. But, you know, we'll see.
You heard him, Rach. Get a wriggle on, girl.
Well, still to come on Good Afternoon Britain.
Yeah, Sainsbury's have been forced to pull a Christmas card because it was branded transphobic. As it said, this Christmas I'm identifying as a Grinch. We'll be asking whether woke mob officially ruined Christmas.
But now, if you're in search of getting away for Christmas, perhaps somewhere warm, perhaps somewhere snowy, here's the weather in Europe.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries, all sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you're after some winter sun tomorrow, well, Spain's not looking like a great bet. There is a front that's bringing quite a bit of cloud and rain lying across much of Spain into Portugal and stretching as far as Madeira and the Canary Islands, all of that pushing its way east and southeastwards. A drier picture for many around the Mediterranean, but some outbreaks of rain here and there. And worth bearing in mind, there's more unsettled weather to come, particularly towards more southern parts as we go towards the weekend. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
So this is a lovely story because it's about a chap who bought this DB5 and he bought it for 900 quid. This is an Aston Martin DB5.
It's a lovely car.
Bought it for 900 quid. And then for 50 years, pretty much didn't do very much. He moved to the Middle East, car left was on his driveway, things happened, the local kids jumped on it and various other things, and it just decayed. He has spent pretty much the big wodge of 400 grand having it done.
Do we have a picture of this car now?
Oh, I thought as I was waffling. Well, I can hold it up. But this is how it looks now. There we go. This is how it looked then and now. I don't know which.
So he spent
there we
400 grand on this.
400 grand. He sent it back to Aston Martin.
Oh.
To where it was made, and the reason it's worth now about $1 million is because there were only 37, I think,
39
of them made, and so it's very rare. There we go. Well done, him.
Pretty penny on that. Good for him.
Yeah. Yes, and good for him.
He hasn't made it yet.
No, he hasn't made it. It's just worth. I know. He may. He could.
I was reading a story about a man who'd spent £1 million on a DB5, and it's now worth 500,000. But
Right,
they
okay.
hit a peak a couple of years ago. But who knows? Who knows?
Who knows?
But don't you want to be spending on a car in order to use it, not to sell it?
Well,
I mean,
he's just...
I had a car like that. I drive it.
Of course. No, then that's what... He's not selling it. He's worked hard to... He said, we've worked hard to get it
It's a work of art.
reconditioned,
It is a work
and
of art.
and he loves it.
I wonder, does it have machine guns and things they're going to...
Oh, no, weirdly, it says no.
Or an
And no ejector seat, exactly. Or any of those other things, yeah.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Oh, welcome back. It is 13:50. Bang on.
10 to 2, as
Bang
we
on.
often say.
I like doing it the complicated way around.
Very nice.
Why not? Should we talk Christmas?
Shall we?
Because it's beginning to feel a lot like, or is it? Wokeness strikes again after a Christmas card was removed from Sainsbury's shelf after being branded transphobic.
Well, the Grinch illustrated card was deemed offensive by some trans and non-binary advocacy groups due to its use of the term identifying. Apparently that's offensive, which they say suggests that a person can arbitrarily choose their gender.
Oh, dear Lord. Sorry. Joining us now is diversity and inclusion facilitator Katie John Wen. Katie, you normally are the voice of common sense on this. What do you make of it?
Well, I think the key is in what you just said. Some trans and non-binary groups found it offensive, and I think it's down to actually a narrow group of individuals, and maybe narrow is the right word about it, that, you know, no two trans people necessarily agree on everything, and I don't take any offence from the card. I don't think any offence was intended by the card. I personally do identify as a Grinch around Christmas. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I actually, in a diverse society, let's use that word, I welcome other people celebrating and enjoying Christmas, Hanukkah, or whatever you want to do at this time of year. But if I choose to be a Grinch, that is my choice, and I identify as a Grinch. But it's got nothing to do with being trans. And, you know, and this whole thing is when some people choose to take offence when absolutely none was intended. They, you know, the card company said none was intended. They've even been described in an LGBT newspaper as an inclusive card company. So there's clearly nothing intended by it. But some people
isn't this
are kind
the problem,
of ruining
Katie?
humour.
So many people just don't know what we're allowed to say anymore, and people sort of tiptoe around because sometimes people are meaning well and accidentally do offend someone, and so it is very, very difficult for a lot of people to actually know where the line is these days because it has moved so rapidly over recent years, backwards and forwards.
And it's splintering communities and society and communication and conversation because you're worried about... Some people maybe do set out to give offence. It's an absolute minority, and an absolute minority take offence at everything. In between, there's a bunch of people just trying to get on. We stumble over language. We're not sure what to say. I get on brilliantly with my neighbours. They come from a diverse political spread of opinions. They call me all kinds of things under the sun, but it's always with love, never malintention. And I see the humour in it, and they make fun of me. I make fun of them. It's called We Get On, it's friendly. But this card has got nothing to do with it. It's the very first time I came on GB News 3 or 4 years ago was when a small group of about 5 or 6 people had complained about an art product in a gallery that had been that was a product made by someone who was allegedly gender critical, and they made a complaint about this product there. The product wasn't transphobic or anything. It was just made by the wrong person in their mind. No one had even noticed it. But once somebody complained, it became a thing, and it escalated out of all kind of proportion. I think this is what this is. It's humour and language policing and proving that actually some people are Grinches. But it's the people taking offence here are the Grinches because they're Grinching humour for us when it's actually a funny card. If you just put into Google, I identify as ... you'll get the classic one, you know, Jermaine Greer with the spaniel ears and the rest of it. Yeah, that was meant to be transphobic. but the ones about the helicopter, etc. But the rest of them is like, I identify as a cat, I identify as a dog, I identify as a Christmas jumper, I identify as a couch potato this time of year. and you know, and I don't know if the potato lobby are going to come on now and complain.
Okay. Well, Katie, thanks indeed for joining us and telling us that we are allowed to use the word identify.
And Merry Christmas as well. To all Grinches.
Now, we should say that a spokesman for the supermarket concern Sainsbury's has said...
We're committed to being an inclusive retailer where people love to work and shop. We offer a wide selection of Christmas cards and our ranges vary each year. So there's something for everyone. We value all customer feedback on this year's designs.
Well, still to come on the show, we have an exclusive interview with the Conservative Party leader, Kemi Badenoch. Wonder what she has to say about what Jess Phillips has been saying today. Well, before all that, let's take a look at the weather.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Welcome to your latest update of the weather from the Met Office here on GB News. A wet one today for the vast majority. We have rain warnings in place across much of southern England and South Wales. Also quite windy, especially along the south coast, all thanks to this little wiggle, a rippling weather front that's bringing heavy and persistent rain across southern counties of England, spreading up into Wales, across into the Midlands and across northern England before lunchtime. So most of England and Wales very wet, very windy along the south coast. Good part of eastern Scotland, dry and fine. Heavy showery rain also coming into Northern Ireland and western Scotland. However, the southwest may turn a bit drier later on. It's quite mild, but it doesn't feel all that mild with the winds and the heavy rain, which may cause further disruption. It continues to spread its way out into the North Sea through this evening, so actually much of the south will become drier for a time, but a line of heavy rain then starts to work back into Wales and southwest England this evening. Pretty soggy for Belfast and Glasgow as well, and eventually that rain will creep up towards Aberdeenshire. Largely dry day here, but that rain will move in as we go through the evening time. So as I said, most places pretty soggy through most of today. Do have this bit of a gap between the weather systems where the winds will fall light for a time, but then that band of showery rain will move across eastern England through this evening, giving another short burst of heavy rain. Then turns a lot drier for many as we go through the night. Showers will keep going in western Scotland, and it'll stay fairly gusty and blustery in western areas too. Temperatures dipping down into mid-single figures, but most places avoiding a frost. Friday, overall, a much drier, much brighter day, certainly for the Midlands and eastern and southern England. Generally, we'll see sunny spells here. Elsewhere, a mixture of bright spells and showers. Lots of showers for Scotland, some for the north coast of Northern Ireland. Still quite breezy, but the winds tending to ease as we go through the day. And again, temperatures 8 to 11 degrees.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's the greatest cash prize of the Great British Giveaway so far. A simply stunning £85,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like, making 2026 your greatest year to date. That could get you that brand new car, extend and improve your home, take you away on that bucket list holiday, or just give you some peace of mind over the coming months. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, this is Jubes & Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here. GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device.
And as long as you have an internet connection. Tune in to GB News, anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Bo, they are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 2 o'clock on Thursday, the 18th of December. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Dawn Neeson.
Change is coming. We can make women and girls safe at last.
Young boys will be sent to misogyny lessons at school as the government launches a crackdown on violence against women and girls. But will it work?
And Britain is facing a bill of billions after the Prime Minister agreed a deal to rejoin the EU's student Erasmus scheme. Critics calling the price inflated. Are we now at the mercy of Brussels?
And a major government review finds British farmers are bewildered and scared for the future amid major concerns over tractor tax. We could have told you that months ago, to be honest.
And the Bank of England have announced that interest rates will fall to their lowest level since February 2023. The government says this is off the back of a drop of inflation. Critics would point to the rather disappointing unemployment numbers. But is this all the good news that still headed, or are we still headed for a Rachel Reeves recession?
So good afternoon, Britain, indeed, and thank you so much for your company this afternoon. Please do let us know what you are identifying as this afternoon as well. If you heard out earlier on debate, identifying as the Grinch is you can't do that. That's cancelled. No.
Well,
That's
according
upsetting.
to one supermarket, I think the supermarket is the only sort of group that actually thinks that it's not a right thing to say. But we've also been talking, of course, about the violence against women and girls strategy. There was a pretty interesting back and forth in the House of Commons a little bit earlier. But our chief political correspondent, Catherine Forster, has sat down with the leader of His Majesty's most loyal opposition, Kemi Badenoch, on a range of issues, including this plan to tackle misogyny in schools. Let's listen.
Kemi Badenoch, the peace dividend is over. We're hearing very bleak warnings of the threat from Russia. But upping defence spending is going to be very, very expensive, isn't it? How on earth are we going to pay for this? There's going to be very difficult choices, aren't there?
It's a good question. There's only one way to do it, and that is to grow our economy, get people into work. Conservative Party is the party of work. You know, we have a Labour government that's the party of welfare. All it cares about is benefits. We can't fund defence with lots of people on benefits. All the money that should be going into defence is going on paying people to stay at home when they should be working. That is how we start fixing this problem.
And you're here at a drone company. Tell us a bit about that and what you would do specifically around this.
So today I've been visiting Evolve Dynamics, who make drones, as part of our announcement for a sovereign defence fund. Labour should have put out its defence investment plan today. They've done nothing. Someone needs to do the thinking. Conservative Party is the only one that can. And basically what we're saying is that you look at what's happening in Ukraine. We have got to accelerate our capability in lethal drone manufacture, making them as quickly as possible at scale. Really critical, and we need money to do that. Getting that sovereign defence fund up and running will help solve that problem. But the second thing is to get Chinese components out of our critical infrastructure, out of defence. China is cornering the market. It is supplying both sides in the Ukraine war, making a lot of money. Other people aren't getting a look in. We're losing manufacturing capability if we allow China to do everything. This sovereign defence fund is about encouraging British manufacturing, investing in British manufacturers to make sure that we have the defence capability that we need.
The war in Ukraine may be nearing a ceasefire. The Defence Secretary is talking about troops on the ground and jets in the air. Are you comfortable with British soldiers physically on the ground in Ukraine, potentially in harm's way? Is that a price that we need to be ready to pay?
So I've always said that we should support Ukraine in every way that we can. They are a democracy that's been invaded by an aggressive dictator. But we're not writing any blank checks for Labour. I haven't seen exactly what they mean by this. I want us to make sure we look after British troops and not just use them willy-nilly where it's not necessary. So I'd need to see the details of that plan. I want to make sure that everything we do is in our national interest. I do believe supporting Ukraine is in our national interest. Russia is not our friend. They are not an ally. They are an enemy. You look at what happened in Salisbury. They've killed British people on British soil. We do not want to pretend that Russia is a party that can be appeased. It's Reform, Nigel Farage, who talk about admiring Putin. They're the ones who've had their leaders taking bribes from Russia. That's not us. We are not Russia's friend in the Conservative Party. We want to protect the UK.
The government have unveiled their violence against women and girls strategy today. One of the measures is potentially sending young boys on courses to tackle misogyny, intervening in the playground. Do you think that that is a sensible policy?
It is a sign of a government that is completely defeated and has run out of ideas. It's not 11-year-old boys who are perpetrating violence against women and girls. That's what they should be focusing on. Get the people who've come from cultures that don't respect women out of our country. That's why we have, policies like deporting all foreign criminals, no ifs, no buts. If you want to solve violence against women and girls, get more police on the streets. 10,000 more police officers keeping our streets safe. But pretending that if we have a few more courses in primary school or year 7, that's what's going to fix it is just complete nonsense. What's happened is some people in Labour have watched Adolescents and they think that that's how they should be making policy. Completely ridiculous.
Patrick Christie on GB News interviewed a young girl called Abby who was sexually assaulted by an Iranian migrant who had come across on a small boat. Do you think that the government's rhetoric on tackling violence against women and girls is matched on the ground by the reality of the steps that they are taking to counter the fact that people are coming across on small boats, we don't know anything about them, and the threat that that poses?
No, the rhetoric doesn't match the reality at all. They're scared. They're scared, they're weak, they're divided, they don't agree amongst themselves. I mean, Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, came out with a few good ideas, not enough, nowhere near enough, and they were all attacking her. They have no plans to sort this issue out. That's why they're talking about going to schools to tell boys to stop being so naughty. That's not what's going to stop a lot of the perpetrators out there. It isn't courses. We need enforcement.
The government is potentially looking to spend up to £1 billion a year to get us back into the Erasmus scheme. Do you think that's a good use of taxpayers' money? And do you worry that the government is dismantling Brexit, really, bit by bit?
It is a terrible use of money. We have some of the best universities in the world in the UK, so lots of people want to come to our universities to study. And Erasmus never gave UK students as much as it gave others. We even had lots of people failing to pay back loans, for example. But we thought that 220 million was too expensive. We were not getting value for money at 220 million. Labour is now spending £500 million, and that's the discounted price. These people cannot negotiate. There was a deal that was negotiated by Conservatives. It wasn't perfect, but it is a lot better than anything that Labour is doing right now. They are making everything worse.
A report on the state of British farming out today. Real concerns about what these inheritance tax changes mean for farmers, the changes coming in April, worries particularly about elderly farmers who don't have 7 years to pass their assets on. What do you want to see happen, and do you think the government is going to have potentially blood on its hands if we see elderly farmers taking their own lives?
Well, I've been very clear. Conservatives will reverse all of these changes on family farms taxes, family business taxes too, because it's not just APR, it's BPR as well. I want people to know that we think what Labour has done has been cruel and immoral. It is wrecking farming in our country. It's, as you said, we've heard stories about some farmers committing suicide. At a time when food security is at the top of many people's minds, this is an area that Labour should not be messing about with.
And just lastly, budget changes in the government are hitting pubs very, very hard. Do you worry that it's going to be last orders for some of these pubs this Christmas?
I do worry about pubs. And I asked the Prime Minister at PMQs yesterday what he was going to do, and it was just waffle. We need to make sure that we back business in this country. Pubs employ a lot of young people. What Labour did with the jobs tax, that increase in national insurance, hit many of them hard. And they were expecting some relief on business rates in last month's budget. They got nothing. In fact, their business rates are very likely increasing. That is a real problem for pubs. And at Christmas time, when they should be making, much of their profit, a lot of them are running at a loss. So I am worried about pubs. We have a Save the Pub campaign. We're doing everything we can to mitigate and try and get Labour on the right track.
Kemi Badenoch, thank you very much indeed for talking to us on GB News today. Thank you.
Well, that was some pretty punchy rhetoric on the
Good for
women and girls
Kemi.
strategy.
Absolutely. I love that line about Labour have obviously watched adolescence, and that's what this entire policy is based around.
Well, let's
She might
speak
have a point.
to Charlie Peters about all of this, because the government wants to talk about violence against women and girls. I was expecting Kemi Badenoch to go a bit softer on the government there, but no, she was absolutely ruthless.
The whole morning we've been waiting for the response, the criticism there. We thought it might be along the lines of what the Children's Commissioner says, Rachel de Souza. She says that she's deeply concerned that the plan does not go far enough to protect girls and that the strategy is insufficient. But what we've just heard from Kemi Badenoch goes way beyond that, saying that if you want to keep women and girls safe, you need to get the people who've come from countries that don't respect women out of our country. She said that's why the Conservatives have policies like deporting all foreign criminals. Well, earlier in the House, we did hear from Jess Phillips, the safeguarding minister, who said that actually deportations were up under Labour over the Conservatives and the end of their government. She said, but Kemi Badenoch said that pretending that if we have a few more courses in primary school or year 7, that's what's going to fix it is just complete nonsense. She says what's happened is some people in Labour have watched Adolescence, that TV drama about a young boy involved in murdering a girl, and they think that's how they should be making policy. Completely ridiculous. She says they're divided, they're scared, and they're weak. Shabala Mahmood, she said, came out with a few good ideas, but they all attacked her, which of course is referring to some of the policies that the Home Office were floating about visa bans and restrictions on countries that failed to take back those who resist deportation. But on that, I mean, Kemi Badenoch is expanding on points that were made by Katie Lamb in the House responding to this violence against women and girls strategy. Katie Lamb, the shadow minister for the Conservatives, saying that we need to have an honest debate about the offenders, about how there is an overrepresentation of foreign nationals. And we also heard from Nick Timothy later, another Conservative MP, talking about whether Jess Phillips would confirm that the grooming gang scandal involves the perpetrators being racially and religiously aggravated attacks on girls, which Jess Phillips said she knows that the girls were targeted in many cases because they were white working class girls, but sort of avoided applying that same categorisation. We also heard Jess Phillips reacting to Katie Lamb with that discussion about overrepresentation of offenders according to foreign nationality. She said to that from every culture, every creed, I have yet to come across any community where violence against women and girls does not happen. Just comes across that perhaps she's missing the point slightly there, which Katie Lamb was making about the over-representation of offending among certain groups. She referred specifically to Afghans and Eritreans in Britain being some 20 times more likely to commit offences, according to data released earlier this year. I think the government might be concerned now that a strategy they're putting out in chunks over the week could be perhaps shadowed by this discussion now about immigration and cultures, but that's so important. That is an important part of it that has to be included, and it feels as though perhaps, Tom and Dawn, that's not a part of what they're saying today.
And it is important, and I understand why Kemi Badenoch was so disciplined in her messaging there. That's what you have to be in politics, because you've got one chance, people will hear one thing. If you do a sort of multifaceted critique, you probably won't land as many punches as an opposition. But sometimes you do need a multifaceted critique, and I do wonder if Kemi Badenoch spoke only about migrant crime to the exclusion of other crime. I mean, you heard Jess Phillips earlier today speaking about, no, of course, you're not having 11-year-old rapists, but early intervention might be able to prevent an 18-year-old rapist. I mean, is that not a legitimate point of inquiry?
You know, when I've not been in the studio, I've been watching on the debates in the Commons, responding to this strategy. And pretty much every Conservative is starting by standing up and saying, I welcome this strategy, lending support to what the government is setting out. Nick Timothy, who posed that question about the grooming gang scandal and the racial and religious elements that are being investigated by this national inquiry, Nick Timothy also said, I welcome what you're introducing here. I know that we don't do enough as a society to tackle this problem. I mean, the government is announcing today, and Jess Phillips made an announcement about nudification tools, these tech platforms that allow users to create abuse images of people without their consent. Perhaps for the leader of the Conservatives to go straight on the attack about this without lending any political support across the aisle to the measures that the government are being brought in, which clearly have some support from the opposition, that could be a point of contention, Tom, as you're pointing out, to have no sort of attempt to bring in a level of cross-party support here. It's a tough one.
I think every step we take to protecting women and girls is a good thing. So we have to support some of what they are doing now. I mean, and when we talk about children, 10, 11-year-olds, I interviewed a 10-year-old girl recently who said a 10-year-old boy in her class had threatened to rape her. I'm not entirely sure either child knew what those words meant, but this is the language our 10-year-olds are having. Where are they getting this from?
No, it's a huge, huge question. Charlie, thanks indeed for being across this subject for us. Of course, more throughout the day on GB News on this one.
OK, coming up next, we'll be discussing Britain's 8 billion, 6 billion, 7 billion, depending on which paper you're reading today, plus Bill, after the Prime Minister agreed a deal to rejoin the EU's student Erasmus scheme.
Yes, all of that, and indeed more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's coming up to 2:20. Now, earlier we said that Sainsbury's had removed a Christmas card from its shelves after claims the card was transphobic. It's important to note, however, it was in fact the publisher of the card who withdrew it, not the supermarket.
Just to make that clear. OK, now let's move on. Britain is set to pay an £8.75 billion bill after Sir Keir Starmer agreed a deal to rejoin the European Union's student exchange programme.
Well, ministers announced on Wednesday that Britain would rejoin the Erasmus scheme, which will allow students to spend a year studying at a European university.
But with Labour estimating that rejoining the scheme will cost £570 million in 2027, can the government really justify the expense?
Well, joining us now is former Liberal Democrat Minister Norman Baker. Norman, it does seem extraordinarily expensive. I mean, everyone can agree that student exchanges can be a good thing, but at what cost?
Well, at what cost is relevant because we don't know the cost, despite the Telegraph front page today, and the fact that it's £2 billion different from the Daily Mail. So there's uncertainty as to actually what it is costing. What is clear is that it was a mistake for us to be removed from the Erasmus scheme in the first place. Young people benefit enormously from the ability to go abroad and study and travel. We've got arrangements in place, by the way, with Australia, with Japan, with Brazil, with all sorts of different countries. So the idea we couldn't have an arrangement with Europe is frankly bizarre. But in terms of the cost, I note what the government has said. I don't know whether this is true or not, but the government has said the UK will receive most of the money back to distribute amongst the UK beneficiaries and also have the opportunity to compete for grants from a £1 billion pot directly managed by the European Commission. So I think the jury's out, frankly, on how much it will cost.
And what benefit is it? I mean, obviously, as Tom said, we all think that, you know, it's brilliant. Students should be able to travel. I mean, it's great to do so. Broadens the mind, etc., etc. We all know all of that. But, I mean, by the Brexit agreement, it didn't stop students travelling and studying abroad, did it?
Well, it stopped.
Oh, we've just, at the worst possible moment, it seems we have a connection issue there with Norman Baker. But we can get some reaction with the Director of Strategy at the Prosperity Institute, Fred de Fossard. Fred, have British students been banned from travelling abroad?
They really have not been banned from travelling abroad. Can we just be very clear here? The Solicitor General, Labour MP Ellie Reeves, said on the announcement either last night or this morning that she was grateful for her experience studying in Italy on the Erasmus scheme when she was an undergraduate. And thanks to Brexit, that opportunity has been taken away from her. But that's just completely untrue. Recently, the Turing scheme, which is the replacement exchange scheme for British students to study abroad, clearly not banned, more students went to Italy under the Turing scheme than British students went to Italy under the Erasmus scheme. So, I mean, is this deliberate misinformation? Is it deliberate dishonesty? Is it ignorance? It's an insane way to justify a policy which, as some journalists and analysts have said, will amount to more British money being spent on the Erasmus scheme per year than on the entirety of budgets for British universities per year.
Have we been sold a pup? Have the EU just literally handed a piece of paper and gone, sign this? Give us a check.
I think so. The European Union, since Brexit, has taken a particular view, in my opinion, towards the UK. They would like Britain to become a captive market for the EU's export goods, so they're doing a thing called the ETS linkage, which means that Britain will now agree to the same level of carbon pricing for industrial goods as the European Union. That will increase British manufacturers' carbon prices by like 40%. So if you make cars, if you make steel, whatever in Britain, all of a sudden your energy bill is being set by Brussels.
To be clear, this is a carbon tax.
Yes.
At the border, set by Brussels, now applied to Britain because Britain chose, under this government, to sign up to it.
Yes, absolutely. So Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Commission, ultimately decides the prices for energy that British businesses pay. 2, we're signing up to a food standards agreement, which will ultimately mean that food standards and how farms in Britain are regulated will be set in Brussels. It probably means that we will have to pay into European food standard regulators' budgets. So again, that's more British money going to Brussels. But it also might mean that European inspectors will ferret around British farms. So again, this shows how the EU wants to approach Britain. They want to treat us as a captive market next to them, take our money away from us, and then send their surplus youth unemployment, which their youth unemployment is very high, as we all know, to the UK.
To be fair, on a matter of European integration, our youth unemployment has been ticking up to match European levels recently.
Indeed, we're hitting Euro crisis levels of unemployment here as well.
But Fred, Sir Keir Starmer has promised us all that this isn't going back into the EU by the back door. He's promised us.
He's promised us. It's also worth remembering that throughout 2024, Nick Thomas-Symonds, the minister who's been organising the reset, said there'd be no youth mobility agreement. There now will be one. He said we wouldn't join Erasmus. We now are joining Erasmus. I think this is about building up to 2026, a huge push for rejoin of the European Union.
Now, what the government would say here is that, look, there's an uncertain world, there's an unreliable partner in the President of the United States. We don't know what the tariffs will be next week with the United States. Isn't it more sensible to stay closer to home? Yes, OK, let's restrict the amount we're able to engage with the wider world. Let's accept European carbon taxes. Let's accept European regulations on our farmers. Let's do all this stuff to make trade with Europe easier, because at the end of the day, Europe is close to home, and that's the be-all and end-all in this big, wide, scary world.
Europe is close to home, but even when we were in the European Union, more British people lived and worked in Australia than worked in the European Union. And that's the case now, and that's clear that the instincts of the British people has always been beyond the continent. It's not necessarily where we see ourselves. And yes, the uncertainty point is a reasonable and interesting one, but it's not like the European Union remains a reliable partner. They're threatening to put tariffs on British steel. The German economy has been in the doldrums for a very long time. Deindustrialisation is sweeping through the EU. So if we want to realign with them to sell more stuff to the EU, who's going to buy it? Their consumer confidence has been crashing. It doesn't make sense to me. Doesn't look like an opportunity for Britain.
And let's be honest here, if, as you say, this is a step back to going into the EU, we're going to get a far worse deal than we ever had in the first place.
I mean, that's obviously true. Will we have a rebate? I highly doubt it. But if you put yourself in the Prime Minister's shoes, he's losing voters across the spectrum. So a huge number of voters who are moving to right-wing parties like Reform, who are obviously not really going to come back. But then there's many more voters he's lost to the Greens and to the Liberal Democrats for reasons which he might be able to stitch a left-wing coalition back together with a rejoin strategy.
Is there a strategy that most people don't care about the European Union emission trading scheme? Most people don't care about projects with acronyms that no one quite understands, and they keep pushing this stuff through, whether it's the SPS deal or the ETS deal. Oh, no one beyond a professor at some European institute at some fancy university understands the detail of this stuff. And what they do is bit by bit, deal by deal, surrender ever more sovereignty, salami slicing this strategy. No one notices one little bit of salami sliced sovereignty leaving, but then suddenly you're faced with 25 deals and you can't decide what pesticides your farmers can use, and you can't control your own carbon tax.
Exactly.
And suddenly you're paying £1 billion a year so that European students can come here. I mean, is the strategy that after all of that said and done, they'll say, you know what? We're basically in the European Union anyway. We might as well formalise it.
I think it's exactly that. As you say, people don't care about acronyms. They do, however, care about money. We remember in 2017, 18, 19, the fight was all about money. The more we start seeing EU demands for British taxpayers' money going to Brussels, instead of, say, going to fixing our crumbling Crown Courts and fixing backlogs in our own public services, that is when the public might hopefully start waking up.
Well, okay. Fred de Fossard, thanks indeed, very much indeed, for joining us.
Merry Christmas, by the way.
Happy Christmas to you too.
We should say that Fred works for the Prosperity Institute, and the Prosperity Institute is owned by the Legatum Group. The group is also one of the lead investors in the holding company of GB News.
OK, now I think we can go back to former Liberal Democrat MP Norman Baker, who froze when I asked him a question. It happens a lot, Norman, it's not personal. Norman, the question I was asking you about youngsters travelling to study abroad, I mean, they were able to do this. We don't need to bung the EU several £billion to make that happen again, do we?
Well, it's a question of how they travel abroad. I mean, it's been made more difficult. I mean, and the access arrangements for universities in the European Union were not the same after we pulled out the Erasmus scheme. And we kept the links going with student exchanges with Japan and Brazil and Australia. And it's bizarre not to have a similar arrangement with the European Union countries. We should never have left. That was a Boris Johnson thing in 2020. And we've had to... So I fully support the idea of going back into it for young people. Young people deserve support. They deserve the ability to go abroad, to learn other languages, to learn other cultures at that particular time of their life, which is very inducive for them to be able to take forward those experiences later in life. So it's very important. I had an opportunity. I went to Germany as part of my degree. Other people have had the opportunity too. But in the last few years, young people haven't had the same opportunity.
Norman, last year, 40,000 people had that opportunity. That's quite a lot. And I mean, the last time I checked, I mean, the 2015-16 figure for the Erasmus programme, for students travelling abroad under that programme, it was 15,000. It was a tiny, tiny fraction of students in Britain. I mean, I was at university in 2015. A small handful of people I knew were Erasmus. This isn't a huge thing that affects the wide-bodied politic of student life.
Well, it has impact, for example, on the fees which are paid and whether they're reclaimable and so on. So there is an impact from Erasmus not being enacted. But I mean, if you're agreeing, Tom, with me that students ought to be able to go abroad, then the issue comes down to what the bill's going to be. And as I mentioned before, I froze or I was frozen. That's not clear. I mean, clearly we need to make sure the bill is a reasonable one. We need to make sure that we reclaim what we can. We need to make sure that things are done on a level playing field. It's more difficult to go back into something than it is to stay in it in the first place. And that's the position we're now in at the moment. But, you know, I support the government in trying to get back into the scheme. But as I say, we have to look at what the final bill is. And I understand that the negotiations are still going on about that final cost.
Norman, it is true to say, isn't it, that after Brexit we were treated by the EU appallingly. It was almost like a very, very messy divorce, to be honest with you. When we go back, and that sounds like the way that we're heading, we're not going to get better deals. It's going to be far worse.
We're not going to get a better deal, that's perfectly true. And it was a messy divorce, and I have to say that people say the European Union wasn't very nice to us. Well, they weren't. But look, we weren't very nice to them. I mean, there's a whole lot of rhetoric coming out from this country, which is very anti-EU. And, you know, there was an attempt to keep us in there, I think. And when people start talking about the EU in derogatory terms, it's not entirely surprising when they respond in a similar way. It was a messy divorce, and both sides, frankly, were at fault for the language which was used.
If there was an attempt to keep us in there, there's a funny way to show it.
Yeah.
When David Cameron went to negotiate with all the capitals of the European nations, what sort of deal did he get? Nothing. He wasn't able to get a single reform at treaty level.
What's worth bearing in mind, and people don't necessarily want to know this, but Britain's position in the European Union before we left was actually a very advantageous one, not least of all because of Margaret Thatcher, going back to the 1980s, and what she achieved in terms of budget rebates. We had tremendous influence in the European Union. We'd influence because our diplomats over there, our commissioners, were extremely talented and able to get their way in a whole
Norman,
range
you
of
can't
things.
have enormous influence over an organisation that you don't have the currency of, that you'll never be the Commission president of, that you'll never hold any of the economic portfolios for, because you refuse to have one of the central tenets of that organisation organisation. I can understand a Euro-federalist saying, you know, we can lead Europe if we take on the euro, if we sort of all wear our berets and become good Europeans. But, I mean, if we are half in, half out, which I sort of think you're arguing, how could we on earth ever lead that organisation?
Well, we don't lead it because we share sovereignty with other countries. But the fact of the matter was, when we were in the European Union, Britain punched above its weight because we're very good at foreign affairs and very good at diplomacy. And we were able to achieve a huge amount in the European Union through the talented people we had sent over there from the UK. And a great deal of European policy was actually created and driven forward from Britain. Now, that's not to say appreciated, but it's perfectly true.
Norman, thank you very much. We can freeze you now. Hold on, freezing. OK, that's former...
Thank you, Dawn and Tom, and a happy Christmas. We don't see you.
Very happy Christmas.
Thank you very much, Norman. That's former Liberal Democrat MP Norman Baker.
Well, still to come on Good Afternoon Britain.
Yes, the Bank of England has announced that interest rates will fall to their lowest level since February 2023 off the back of a drop on inflation yesterday. But are we still headed for a Rachel Reeves recession?
Well, this is GB News.
Welcome to your latest update of the weather from the Met Office here on GB News. A wet one today for the vast majority. We have rain warnings in place across much of southern England and South Wales. Also quite windy, especially along the south coast, all thanks to this little wiggle, a rippling weather front that's bringing heavy and persistent rain across southern counties of England, spreading up into Wales, across into the Midlands and across northern England before lunchtime. So most of England and Wales very wet, very windy along the south coast. Good part of eastern Scotland, dry and fine. Heavy showery rain also coming into Northern Ireland and western Scotland. However, the southwest may turn a bit drier later on. It's quite mild, but it doesn't feel all that mild with the winds and the heavy rain, which may cause further disruption. It continues to spread its way out into the North Sea through this evening, so actually much of the south will become drier for a time, but a line of heavy rain then starts to work back into Wales and southwest England this evening. Pretty soggy for Belfast and Glasgow as well. And eventually that rain will creep up towards Aberdeenshire. Largely dry day here, but that rain will move in as we go through the evening time. So as I said, most places pretty soggy through most of today. Do have this bit of a gap between the weather systems where the winds will fall light for a time, but then that band of showery rain will move across eastern England through this evening, giving another short burst of heavy rain. Then turns a lot drier for many as we go through the night. Showers will keep going in western Scotland, and it'll stay fairly gusty and blustery in western areas too. Temperatures dipping down into mid-single figures, but most places avoiding a frost. Friday, overall, a much drier, much brighter day, certainly for the Midlands and eastern and southern England. Generally, we'll see sunny spells here. Elsewhere, a mixture of bright spells and showers. Lots of showers for Scotland, some for the north coast of Northern Ireland. Still quite breezy, but the winds tending to ease as we go through the day. And again, temperatures 8 to 11 degrees.
Thank you, Britain, for helping us reach 8 million followers across social media. Thank you for making us a part of your daily life.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Drivers on the A9 Kessock Bridge should proceed with caution due to high winds. The M4 has speed restrictions between junctions 22 at Pilning and 30 at Cardiff Gate. On the M69 southbound in Leicestershire, expect delays as a broken down vehicle closes one lane between junctions 2 and 1. The M4 eastbound at junction 5 in Slough has a complete lane closure due to a collision. In North Somerset, the M5 northbound entry slip at junction 21 faces lane closures. On the trains, East Midlands Railway encounters disruptions between Leicester, Corby and Bedford. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Hello, welcome back. It's Good Afternoon Britain, and it is 36 minutes past 2 indeed.
Incredibly precise.
And 35 seconds.
And of course, we all know that 36 minutes past 2 is time for the Great British Giveaway.
Of course.
And it's your chance to win our biggest cash prize of the year, an incredible £85,000.
And all that extra cash in the bank, that could be 2026 on us. Not literally us too, but the company, obviously.
Thank goodness.
We don't have that yet.
Yeah.
Here's all the details you need to win it.
It's the big one. Your chance to win a whopping £85,000 in tax-free cash. The largest cash prize we've given away to date. That's like over £7,000 a month extra in your bank account each month for 12 whole months. That's a year of yes. Yes to holidays, yes to treats, yes to shopping trips, yes to home improvements. What would you say yes to? For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. The winner may be contacted live on GB News, week commencing the 9th of February 2026. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck indeed. Now the Bank of England has cut interest rates.
Yes, what have they cut them from? Tom, stop wiggling that around. From 4% to 3.75%. Woo.
Yeah, it comes as households face rising unemployment, declining inflation and borrowing costs now down to their lowest level since January 2023. But what we want to talk about is the wider economy. What exactly is going on? And frankly, does the government have any control whatsoever?
Yes. So joining us now is economist Andrew Lillico. Andrew, are we in one hell of a mess? Oh, I think he's fallen asleep.
That's not Andrew Lillico.
No, I'm not Andrew
Lillico. No. Let's see if we can get Andrew Lillico up.
That was interesting.
Well, while we wait, what do you reckon of Rachel Reeves, Dawn? Do you think
How long have you got? I don't think we've got. The buck stops with the boss, doesn't it? I think Rachel Reeves is trying her hardest. But you have to ask questions of a boss, and that's Keir Starmer.
Well, I suppose the two of them have their political fortunes so intrinsically linked together.
Exactly, this is the problem.
That he can't sack her without bringing down himself. That we're probably lumbered with both of them for quite some time to come.
The thing is with this interest rate story, it's like we're all meant to go, whoopee-doo, fantastic, you're doing a great job, Rach. And it's not working because we're not that stupid.
But also, it's not directly in her gift. The Bank of England, the Monetary Policy Committee is 9 independent. They are independent.
Well, I know they're independent, but
also there are good reasons why interest rates can be cut, and there are bad reasons why interest rates can be cut. So lower inflation is a good reason why it could be cut. Higher unemployment, not such a good reason why they can be cut.
And we know we have higher unemployment now, and lots of you are getting in touch. It's at gbnews.com/you'll-say, and none of you, not a single positive message about that. Certainly older viewers, and I'm classifying myself with you, interest rate savings now, and it's mainly older people that have savings, it's really not good news for you.
Now, I think I'm being told we've got Andrew Lillico to go to now. Andrew, thanks indeed for joining us. Frankly, is this interest rate cut good news for the economy? Is it because we're doing stupendously well, or is it because we haven't really been doing that well at all?
Well, it's a combination of things, as you might expect me to say. There's a fall in inflation, which has been faster than the Bank of England anticipated last month. So that's good news. But on the other hand, what the Bank of England thinks is that part of the reason for that is that there's an emerging output gap in the economy. So the economy is not growing as fast as it might otherwise do. And obviously, that's bad news. They also see there as being downside risk associated with rising unemployment. And so there are these factors which are just tipping things. Things are very balanced. The committee only voted 5-4 to cut, whereas they voted 5-4 the previous month to hold things. And economists quite a few economists are now suggesting there might only be one more interest rate cut in this cycle. So things are pretty balanced, but I would say it's a bit of 6 of one and half a dozen of the other.
But is it going to help the economy, Andrew? The bottom line, what everybody wants to know is this going to help get the economy kick-started again?
No, I don't think this is going to make that much difference. I think that's the fairly straightforward answer to that. The economy's problems are not to do with interest rates being too high. They're much more fundamental than that. So unfortunately, I'd like to be able to tell you a good Christmas story that everything was going to be okay, but unfortunately I can't.
OK, Andrew, I'll let you fantasise about a good Christmas story. Keir Starmer offers you a peerage tomorrow and decides to make you Chancellor of the Exchequer. What are the things that you do to try and lift this country out of the doldrums? What are the quick things that actually could be done? Maybe not even quick, but what are the things that should be done to lift us back up?
The key things that should be done, so we have quite a wide range of problems, but places to start would be to reduce public spending. Public spending is up very considerably, even just from 2019, and that difference, so each additional, it's 6% higher now than it was, and that you should expect to be taking something like 0.6% off the annual growth rate of GDP. So if you could bring down the public spending, that would make the economy grow faster. The UK economy is for many years had a problem with an inability to build things. So we should be building more reservoirs, roads, infrastructure of various sorts, houses. The government is doing a little bit on the side of housing, but more broadly, I think that there's plenty of additional scope to change things there. I think that we should be seeking to be, we should not be wasting our time with trying to go further along the lines of things to do with the European Union. We've already got as good a trade deal as we should want with them. We should be seeking to do more of the kinds of international trade agreements which we've been getting some of in the past few years, but I think that there's plenty of scope to do more in the way of those, and I think so that's another area. I think that we should be changing some of the way that financial regulation works. It's all a bit technical, the exact changes that I'd introduce, you can imagine, for financial regulation, but there's scope to improve the way that the financial sector works, which has not been being looked at, and that would allow for a more stable growth of GDP and a more stable interest rate environment.
Now, Andrew, after the global financial crisis, of course, a lot of regulation was placed on our financial sector. Politicians argue that this was entirely necessary to stop another 2008 happening. Are you saying that we've sort of gone too far the other way, that it's too much regulation now piled on our financial sector?
What happened in particular was that they felt that there was going to be a high risk that they might have to bail out further banks, even in the short term. They felt that was going to be absolutely politically unacceptable for obvious reasons. And so for quite a while, they were very, very restrictive with the banks. And this probably significantly undermined growth between about 2010 and 2014 in the UK economy. So that was quite an important factor. They relaxed things a little bit in that end, but I think that you should be seeking to make more use of basic market forces. If you go right across the economy, it's almost like we have a kind of, the people use the phrase, a war on prices. Everyone's talking about how you want to restrict this and that price. They talk about having special prices for tourists and special prices for rich people. I was seeing in the papers just the other day the suggestion that richer people will be paying more for their license fee. I think that the whole abandonment of belief in the price mechanism is quite significant, and it creates, not only is it damaging for investors and so on, but it damages the basic functioning of the economy. So it doesn't do its job in allocating things properly, giving people who have good ideas an opportunity to get ahead. We have, and I think some of our antipathy towards wealth is also damaging. All this discussion of wealth taxes is quite, is very negative. One of the important things that wealthy people do is, as they get richer, they then have resources which they can invest in the ideas and schemes of people who aren't yet rich. So that you create that opportunity for people to get ahead who have new ideas. We are very against that kind of thing, been against that kind of thing for 15 or 20 years. We've got into a mindset where we think that the job of the government is to keep those who have with the things they already have. So if you have a house, house prices aren't allowed to fall. If you have bank deposits, then the bank isn't allowed to get into trouble. If you've already made some decision on where there's all this business that we see even with sort of no ball games allowed signs. People buy a house next to a field where the kids play, and they try to get a no ball game sign erected. All that kind of mentality where we think that the task of the state is to make those who have have, keep it. I think we need to get away from that. We need a much more dynamic sort of a society. And I think that if we did, we would grow much more like the faster growing societies in the world, places like United States, Australia, Singapore.
Trouble with dynamism, though, is it creates losers as well as winners, but maybe that's a price to pay. Andrew Lillicoat, thanks indeed for joining us.
Thank you very much. It's all about growth and change, evidently. Where have we heard that before? OK, now, if you are in search of some holiday sun, maybe a little escape, who can blame you? Here's a forecast for those top European destinations for you.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you're after some winter sun tomorrow, well, Spain's not looking like a great bet. There is a front that's bringing quite a bit of cloud and rain lying across much of Spain into Portugal and stretching as far as Madeira and the Canary Islands, all of that pushing its way east and southeastwards. A drier picture for many around the Mediterranean, but some outbreaks of rain here and there. And worth bearing in mind, there's more unsettled weather to come, particularly towards more southern parts as we go towards the weekend. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power?
Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber.
Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics.
We'll see where this ruling takes us.
These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's just gone 10 to 3, and the farming sector is being left bewildered and frightened by government policy. Well, that's not news. But what is news is that this is an actual government review that said this.
We could have told them that. They didn't have to spend money on a review. In any case, a report that probably cost you money, led by former NFU President Baroness Minette Batters, calls for a new deal for profitable farming, warning costs are rising while weather conditions become more extreme. Although inheritance tax charges weren't formally within the review scope, farmers raise them as the single biggest threat to their viability.
Well, joining us now is dairy farmer and columnist Jamie Blackett. Jamie, good to see you again. This is, of course, a moment where the government, perhaps for the first time, has actually recognised just how much pressure there is on the farming sector.
Well, I think they've always talked about that, but now they've got it formally from Minette Batters in her report, where she has cited the family farm tax as being a major issue here, affecting our confidence. Farming is like any other business, and of course all family businesses are affected by the loss of BPR and APR. APR, really agricultural property relief, just being the farming version, really, of business property relief that all businesses had. That loss has affected confidence really much more deeply than anybody could ever have predicted. We have all really been in a flat spin about this since it was announced just over a year ago, and all investment in farms has really stopped while we've assessed things and tried to mitigate it as best we can. And you know, we are all fearful for the future, because this is something that is going to affect the old, the ill, and the unlucky. There's suddenly a realization that the government is a bit like a pride of lions chasing a herd of wildebeest across the savannah. And those that stumble and are unlucky and die in freak accidents or get cancer or something like that are going to be the ones who will lose their farms. And that is really a very frightening situation to be in, and something that is really very depressing. I mean, we want government to be there to support us and to help us to grow and to thrive and to grow people's food for everybody. We don't want to be in a position where...
Well, Jamie Blackett, I'm afraid we're going to have to end it there. We've gone to the end of the show, but thanks so much for joining us, and indeed thank you for watching.
Yeah, and we're back tomorrow. Lucky
we will
you,
indeed.
Have a good afternoon.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Welcome to your latest updates of the weather from the Met Office here on GB News. A wet one today for the vast majority. We have rain warnings in place across much of southern England and South Wales. Also quite windy, especially along the south coast, all thanks to this little wiggle, a rippling weather front that's bringing heavy and persistent rain across southern counties of England, spreading up into Wales, across into the Midlands and across northern England before lunchtime. So most of England and Wales very wet, very windy along the south coast. Good part of eastern Scotland, dry and fine. Heavy showery rain also coming into Northern Ireland and Western Scotland. However, the southwest may turn a bit drier later on. It's quite mild, but it doesn't feel all that mild with the winds and the heavy rain, which may cause further disruption. It continues to spread its way out into the North Sea through this evening, so actually much of the south will become drier for a time, but a line of heavy rain then starts to work back into Wales and southwest England this evening. Pretty soggy for Belfast and Glasgow as well, and eventually that rain will creep up towards Aberdeenshire. Largely dry day here, but that rain will move in as we go through the evening time. So as I said, most places pretty soggy through most of today. Do have this bit of a gap between the weather systems where the winds will fall light for a time, but then that band of showery rain will move across eastern England through this evening, giving another short burst of heavy rain. Then turns a lot drier for many as we go through the night. Showers will keep going in western Scotland, and it'll stay fairly gusty and blustery in western areas too. Temperatures dipping down into mid-single figures, but most places avoiding a frost. Friday, overall, a much drier, much brighter day, certainly for the Midlands and eastern eastern and southern England. Generally, we'll see sunny spells here. Elsewhere, a mixture of bright spells and showers. Lots of showers for Scotland, some for the north coast of Northern Ireland. Still quite breezy, but the wind's tending to ease as we go through the day. And again, temperatures 8 to 11 degrees.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's the big one. Your chance to win a whopping £85,000 in tax-free cash. The largest cash prize we've given away to date. That's like over £7,000 a month extra in your bank account each month for 12 whole months. That's a year of yes. Yes to holidays, yes to treats, yes to shopping trips, yes to home improvements. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Oh, that's so cute. You got a birthday present for Eamon.
What do you mean so cute? It's wrapped in Tottenham Hotspur paper.
That's what's so cute. I bet you love that.
There you go. Look at that. It's in Tottenham Hotspur paper. Would you like it now?
Yeah.
Come on.
Open it now.
Come on, birthday boy.
I can't possibly
Happy birthday.
I can't possibly see what you could have bought me from the Tottenham Hotspur shop that would be of any interest. Oh, it's this to do with Big Pat.
What?
This is Big Pat.
Listen, don't get overexcited. That's all I can say.
Well, the paper aside,
Apart from the paper.
Oh, an SPV vehicle.
There it is.
Absolutely incredible.
A what?
That's from Captain Scarlet.
Do.
Oh,
yeah.
no. You did say you wanted toys.
That is joyous, Paul. Thank you very much indeed,
Happy
my
birthday.
friend.
Are you going to keep it in the box or are you going to play with it? I'll have to get another one.
What if I take it out and put it back in the box?
Yeah, I think we'll be all right.
I've never had one this size before.
How big was the other one you had then? Was it smaller?
About the size of the box.
Oh, right. OK, nice.
Yeah, this is very cute. Very, very good.
What is it?
It's a Corgi SPV vehicle. It's from Captain Scarlet.